My life and my world were destroyed, and it all began when mysterious towers started to appear all over the world. No one knew where they came from or why they appeared out of nowhere, but they were later nicknamed the Nightmare Towers. Because of their terrifying nature, it was around this time that the Nightmare Tower began to choose people, randomly, giving them the chance to become tower walkers and save the world. Those who answered the tower's call were instantly summoned inside it as an initial incentive. They received battle equipment from the interface system that allowed them to use supernatural strength and abilities, the kind you normally see in RPG games. But the worst part is that it wasn't a game. For the people living on the outside, things quickly became a nightmare. The towers soon unleashed waves of monsters into the real world, and this phenomenon was later called the Tower Impact. Humanity fought as best as they could, but the first tower impact wiped out nearly 30% of the world's population. The tower walkers, trapped inside, could do nothing but watch the catastrophe unfold and see their loved ones die. Since they weren't actually killing monsters inside the tower, it became infested with them, and eventually, these monsters invaded the real world. But to change that, everyone decided to climb and kill monsters, with the help of the powers and abilities they had been granted. To tempt them and lead them astray, the tower cunningly offered an unprecedented opportunity. They received an object known as the Regression Stone. As the name suggests, it allowed the inhabitants of the tower to go back in time to the moment before the tower impact. Memories and experiences would remain intact after the regression. Some didn't hesitate for a second and seized the chance, while others were suspicious of the stone. It turns out that those who used it didn't travel back in time. Instead, they were transferred to a parallel universe with a different timeline. Basically, those who returned to the past weren't fixing anything in this world. They simply abandoned it as they continued to climb the tower. Things only got worse, especially after the tower's second impact. So, instead of dying a pathetic death at the hands of monsters, many decided to abandon their world and regress. The fate of this world was left solely in the hands of the brave souls who resisted the temptation of the Regression Stone. But little did they know that what awaited them was death on the 98th floor, the Chamber of Infernal Fire. Jayden was completely defeated, along with his companions, but they didn't give up, fighting until their last breath. Eventually, our boy managed to defeat the tower's guardian at the cost of his friends' lives. His one and only true friend, the one he loved the most, also chose to abandon this reality. With his last breath, it broke Jayden's heart to see his friend make such a regrettable choice. But the protagonist didn't waver. He pushed forward and finally reached the 99th floor, where he had to face the guardian, the Ice Wyrm Velchizos. 10 long years have passed since he reached the 99th floor, fighting against that monstrosity. Although the 98th floor almost destroyed him, he knows that, without the equipment, abandoned by the other tower climbers, who were once his friends, he would have been dead long ago. Now, he's back on the lower levels of the tower, meeting a blacksmith named Jay. The blacksmith is shocked that our protagonist actually wants to challenge that monster again. But Jayden doesn't hesitate to confirm it. He won't back down until he finishes what he started. Here's a little context about this place. Some time ago, the tower climbers retook a village on the 5th floor after finally defeating the dragon that ruled it. This village is now called Oedipus. Of all the blacksmiths who lived in Oedipus, Jay is the only one left. He is sad because the demand for ore that always came from the lower floors has practically disappeared. Aiden thinks to himself that this kind of outcome was inevitable. After all, there are hardly any survivors left. Jay pauses and asks if he has noticed anything strange during his recent wanderings through the tower, and Aiden remembers the place where the Regression Stone was found. Strange markings were carved on its surface with letters he couldn't read. Although when Jay asks, he just says he saw nothing. His mind briefly wanders to Helen, the old woman who disappeared yesterday, leaving Jay and her as the last supporters of Oedipus until then. Aiden then directly asks to learn how to forge. The sudden request makes the blacksmith freeze mid-strike. Once again, our boy is back on the 98th floor, trying once more to defeat this arrogant dragon. The monster praises the brave tower climber, recognizing him as the pioneer who managed to reach the 99th floor alone. The dragon may have a tough hide, but our boy has already begun to crack its hardened scales. No matter how many times it takes, he is prepared to return indefinitely until the monster finally falls. During one of his charges, an attempt ends with him being completely crushed, leaving him wounded and battered. At this point, even the mighty dragon can't help but acknowledge the determination burning within this young man. He carries an unshakable desire, a singular obsession, to defeat this monster and make his friend's sacrifice hold true meaning. However, The dragon believes that defeat is inevitable, and that failure is the only destiny awaiting Aiden. But our boy charges forward after breaking free from the ice, fully prepared to prove the monster wrong. He assumes his stance once more, trusting in the only technique he knows. The dragon even finds it amusing that the boy continues to attack with the same old trick. You see, Jayden didn't have the same luck as other tower wanderers, who began their careers much earlier, which gave them the opportunity to obtain unique abilities and secret classes. Jayden had nothing going for him, so he dedicated everything he had to one simple, yet devastating technique, the art of piercing. He would relentlessly pierce his targets, repeating the movement tens of millions of times. This refined mastery even earned him a few nicknames. His piercing became increasingly faster, stronger, and more precise, evolving, eventually into something comparable to a hidden class skill. And because it wasn't a skill in the proper sense, Jayden could use it indefinitely without consuming spiritual energy, unlike hidden skills. Even so, not even hundreds of thousands of strikes were enough to cause truly significant damage. Then, Jayden realized something. The monster's weakness was its jaw. The moment the dragon opened its jaws to let out a roar, a colossal, icy roar, Jayden seized the opportunity. He pierced it from the inside out, obliterating one of its eyes and shattering half of its jaw. Even after concentrating everything he had into that strike, it still wasn't enough to completely destroy the monster's jaw. Determined to fight seriously, the dragon took flight and unleashed a relentless barrage of ice. Jayden narrowly escapes the attacks at first, but he is eventually overwhelmed. Seeing this, the dragon boasts of its strength, convinced that a mere tower wanderer could never defeat a beast of its caliber. Perhaps things would have been different if more fighters like Jayden had worked together. This is precisely why the dragon feels satisfied, knowing that the foolish humans fell into the trap of the Nightmare Stones. Upon hearing this, Jayden is startled and demands the dragon explain more about these Nightmare Stones. Instead of answering, the monster begins to crush everything under its enormous paws, leaving Jayden no choice but to retreat for now. He is left with almost no HP, and a single blow would have been enough to finish him. Even so, his curiosity remains. He needs to learn more about the Nightmare Stones, and what that dragon truly knows. To get the answers he seeks, he spends half a decade fighting the monster. Finally, his efforts pay off. The nightmare of the 99th floor is defeated, and the victor sits atop the monster's devastated body. Now, before the monster's life is extinguished, Jayden demands to know the truth about the Nightmare Stones. The dragon, however, does not give him that satisfaction. It says that Jayden can only unravel the mystery behind them by reaching the final floor. With these final words, the monster dies, and our hero gains the Ice Dragon's sword as a reward. Although, honestly, this so-called sword doesn't look much like one. Now, the moment of truth has arrived. The door to the final floor materializes right before him. Jayden advances with no fear in his heart, even without knowing what awaits him beyond it. Upon entering the final floor, Jayden realizes he is in a strange place, where numerous light panels float around him, each displaying a different image. From there, he observes the state of the tower in the outside world, and then suddenly, a voice emerges from an unseen place, noting that our protagonist has arrived early and reassuring him that there is no reason to worry. Just then, an important announcement is broadcast, and a system notification appears before him, congratulating our hero on being the first person to fully complete the game's tutorial in World 294. The message continues, declaring that his record will be permanently stored in the Immortal Library, the Akashic Record itself, and that the monarchs of the Great Land will be able to consult it. Upon reading this, Jayden's mind is flooded with all the terrible experiences he had in the tower, and now he discovers it was all just a tutorial. The mysterious voice observes how shocked our boy has become, and warns him not to get too shaken, or he'll face the consequences. A massive wave of water crashes into Jayden, and a beast with glowing eyes comes into view. The creature comments that he has already gone further than he should have, but praises the self-control he has shown for a human. The compliment doesn't last long, as the beast stops abruptly mid-sentence. As our protagonist emerges from the water, the figure observes how quickly Jayden recovered much faster than expected. He doesn't hesitate and demands to know who this being is. The figure just laughs in response, admitting it got too excited and forgot to introduce itself completely. It tells Jayden that he should be proud of having reached the 7th floor alone for the first time in history. It finally reveals its name, Beastrain, the demon who governs the Tower of Nightmares. Hey, you've watched the video this far, and you still haven't subscribed to the channel? What's up with that, man? You're slacking. Come on, my friend, subscribe now to make me a very happy camper, okay? 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 Anyway, our hero can't ignore the idea that all of that was just a tutorial, and asks if there must be a real game waiting beyond. The demon confirms that he is correct, but Beastrain insists that before they proceed, it wants to show him something. He snaps his fingers, and scenes from Jayden's journey flash across the screen. Our boy watches the images unfold, starting with the moment Leo joins his group. He sees Leo and Ethan by his side, as the three of them laugh together, introduce themselves, and fight side by side, like a true team. Then, some dark memories are shown, where Leo's battered body lies on the ground, and Jayden is on his knees, calling his name repeatedly with a trembling voice. Next, Ethan's final moments appear. Meanwhile, Beastrain asks if this rising wave of sadness is awakening emotions Jayden thought he had buried. The demon calls these feelings a waste, but offers something cruelly tempting: the chance to go back and start over from scratch, only this time, keeping every memory exactly as it is. Beastrain's smile widens, as our protagonist realizes with greater clarity that this is not the end of his journey, but the bright message before him is also not a gift. It's nothing more than a trap, since he believed he could save the world if he climbed the tower. He remembers the system window that named him as the chosen one to walk the tower, supposedly destined to save the world from the very beginning. There was no way to stop the tower's impact, and they were tricked into climbing it. Saving humanity was their only hope. Jayden rejects the offer immediately, firmly declaring that he will never return to the past. Beastrain scoffs at his refusal, stating that no one can cling to what is already gone, as regression is impossible both in the tower and on the great earth. The name of the regression stone comes to our boy's mind, but the demon shatters the illusion immediately, explaining that the so-called regression stone was never what people believed it to be. It is in fact the nightmare stone, a cursed gem that drags anyone who touches it into endless dreams woven by a dream demon. Her words cut even deeper as she laughs again, saying that humans are probably the only foolish and desperate creatures who would be willing to cling to such a thing, enough to fall for such a trap. Our hero pieces together the full truth. The main game that Boston spoke of is nothing more than an endless, repeating cycle, one that never truly restarts. Without the slightest hesitation, Jayden firmly declares that he has already discovered the true nature of the tower. The tower itself is just another dream. With his decision made and his path clear, our protagonist vows that he will hunt Beastrain at any cost and ascend to the next floor that awaits him. Beastrain continues to pressure him, insisting that the tower ends there, but our protagonist ignores him completely, refusing to even acknowledge the claim. The demon begins to taunt him, suggesting that perhaps he's only insisting out of greed, wanting more than just memories as a reward, and tries to entice our hero by offering hidden treasures. Even so, Jayden doesn't consider the offer for even a second. Beastrain asks if he wants to return to his world, stating that he should have known this from the moment he realized the tower was just a dream. He then reveals that the tower's impact isn't even real. Jayden demands to know what he means, and Beastrain responds by showing a vision of everyone outside, alive and unharmed. He continues, explaining how beings like him live in groups, pointing out that this should be good news for our protagonist. He then shifts the vision to another scene. This time, it's Jayden in a hospital room, looking down at his own unconscious body, lying in a bed along with all the others, as Beastrain explains that, although he spent decades inside the tower, only 1 month has passed in the real world. The demon begins to boast again, claiming our hero would never stand a chance of defeating him, comparing the difference between them to the gap between a dragon and a human. Jayden simply raises his sword and declares that he has already killed a dragon, which makes Bastro snarl and call him arrogant the next instant. The two clash violently. Later, Jayden entered a building, calling for Jay, but got no answer, and his mind wandered back to all his battles with the beast. 72 days had passed, and he had never managed to land a fatal blow. Despite all these fights, the demon had never killed him either, and now, our hero realizes this is because he never had that intention. With this in mind, our protagonist vows to continue, no matter how long it takes. Meanwhile, Bastro reflects deeply on Jayden as a valuable product for sale, a seed that refuses to grow the way he desires. Normally, the process is simple. Select the good seeds during the tutorial, cultivate them throughout the main game, and watch them develop. But this one is the exception, resisting all progress, no matter what is done. The demon considers killing him, but the thought of harming the soul and attracting the attention of the lost reaper stops him. Instead, he decides to raise him carefully and make a fortune, imagining himself ascending to the upper ranks and paying off all his debts, especially since even gods, who normally avoid demons, have shown an interest in Jayden. Suddenly, Jayden attacks him from behind, leading Bastro to question his true objective. But our hero continues to swing his sword without stopping for even a second. The demon tries to reason with our protagonist, insisting that advancing to the main game would benefit not only him but also everyone connected to him. Despite it all, Jayden shows not the slightest sign of concern. The fight intensifies, until Bastro throws him to the ground and starts shouting again, offering all the skills and the hidden items he possesses, if Jayden would just agree. However, our boy insists on hunting him, and with Beast Rain's patience wearing thin, Jayden finally says he has a question. Later, Beast Rain begins to explain that their universe is composed of more than one dimension. But Jayden interrupts, saying he already knows this, because theories like that exist on Earth. The demon continues anyway, describing how the Great Land is the main dimension and how countless smaller border worlds, including Earth, known as World 294, surround it. He explains that the Nightmare Tower exists so that walkers can acquire skills and adapt to the system to travel through these different worlds, and demons like them are responsible for helping the walkers in the games. But when Jayden asks why they do this, Beast Rain changes the subject and instead questions aloud why the tower appeared specifically in World 294. He reveals that this world was chosen simply by coincidence. Our protagonist doesn't give up and interrupts him again, demanding to know the demon's true purpose in running it. Beast Rain tries to evade the question, claiming he's just being helpful, but Jayden refuses to believe it and insists, wanting to know exactly what rewards he will receive for it. The demon replies with vague excuses about different motivations, but before the conversation can go any further, a red message suddenly appears above Beast Rain, sent by the monarch, ordering him not to kill Jayden and to end the conversation immediately. With that, the demon, oblivious to the situation, turns to him and asks if he believes him now. Jayden just stares at him in silence. Jayden's status screen is completely filled out, all attributes are maxed out, and his level is fully reached. And no matter how hard he tries, nothing increases. He drinks a potion and gets up again. Even with all this power, the gap between him and Bestrain is something he just can't seem to close. Suddenly, something occurs to him, and our boy begins to feel a strange sensation. Looking ahead, he notices shimmering golden particles floating in the air. He catches one of the fragments and notes that some are fine, smooth particles, while others are rough, jagged pieces, like sugar cubes. In that moment, our protagonist understands that this is the truth. The raw particles that make up the very essence of this world are now laid bare before him. Facing Bestrain, Jace wonders aloud what exactly a monarch is. Assuming it's nothing more than a title for a king, Bestrain perceives his interest. He explains that monarchs rule the Great Land, and anyone who completes the main game earns a recommendation from one of them. So, our curious boy asks what the recommendation truly means, and Bestrain replies that his entire destiny depends on the monarch he chooses. He adds that if Jace trusts him, he will ensure he ends up serving under the best possible monarch. Bestrain even stakes his own honor on it, vowing to see him through to the main game if our hero agrees. The swordsman, after a moment of thought, comments that Bestrain sounds more like an insurance salesman than anything else. Even so, Jace agrees to participate, adding that in exactly 10 days, he will leave this place. 9 days later, our protagonist is training with intense focus, while Bestrain watches him through a screen. He comments that he's been repeating the same thing all day, and points out that the time is almost up. His thoughts wander bitterly to how the dream demons tricked him into buying that low-quality tower. He growls under his breath, cursing those swindlers, remembering how he rushed to accept the deal just because he heard that it had been built by an expert-level demon. Later, the truth hit him hard, as it was nothing more than a first-generation relic, with no registered manufacturing year. If it were a third-generation tower, Beastrain could have forcibly ended the tutorial, without damaging the product. But this obsolete relic requires the consent of the product itself to end the game. The demon believes his only crime was being too poor to buy something better. Still, it works, and with tomorrow fast approaching, he hopes it will all finally be over. The next day, the system displays tips about the main game, mentioning the Tree of Illusion and the Great Land, before another message from the Game Master appears, offering Jayden the opportunity to return to World 294. With all his memories intact, Beastrain asks if he has memorized the data, and our hero confirms that he has. The demon then presses him to hurry up and accept. He sheds tears of joy, as the long-awaited moment has finally arrived. But to his surprise, Jayden suddenly brandishes his sword. Beastrain freezes in shock, and demands to know what he thinks he's doing. The grip on our protagonist's sword tightens, as he replies that Beastrain should already know the answer, because he is going to hunt him. Ever since Jayden observed those particles, his piercing technique has seemed unstable, and he feels that something is wrong. He feels as if something has awakened within him. The pressure mounts as a huge claw descends upon our hero, and his strike cuts through in response. Beastrain admits that he's never seen anyone like this before, and that things would have been much simpler for both of them if this had happened sooner. Tentacles extend and wrap tightly around Jayden, trapping him in place. However, our boy points out that the game cannot end without his approval, and the strange figure calmly reveals that she gave up on getting consent a long time ago. She then asks aloud why Jayden thinks the tutorial will never end. He explains that the Tower of Nightmares was built to end automatically, 100 days after the tutorial is completed, so the being decides to leave our protagonist be, until it's time to play the main game. Even so, Jayden raises his sword, while calling for Beastrain, mentioning that he knows he is the 784-year-old cheater, who has visited a total of 128 worlds, spending his time cultivating the species in each one. The Tower Master is stunned, and demands to know how Jayden could know all of that. Our hero adds that he would hand him over to Harvester, the Monarch of Darkness. Beastrain starts to sweat in a panic, and asks who Jayden is. Our protagonist confidently explains that he is the product Beastrain has cultivated there, for decades. In the next instant, he releases a massive amount of energy, aiming to defeat the Tower Master. Jayden charges with all his strength, brandishing his sword and striking Beastrain head-on, pushing him back. They then clash with their full power, but as a result, our boy slides backward, while Beastrain's shoulder is wounded. This leaves the demon confused, and then something dawns on him. Meanwhile, our protagonist readies his sword, as Beastrain wonders if he is a super-adapted player. Our boy remembers that ever since he reached the 100th floor, he had wondered if the demon would be able to kill him as reality itself began to unravel. He finally understood that he was stabbed when, without a doubt, he had already departed. He strikes the opponent's shield, shattering it completely. The system notifies that the sinkhole limitation has been removed. The demon then transforms its body to counterattack Zion with all its might, trying to force his surrender as Bestran attacks. He admits he's impressed to see our hero reach the second stage of adaptation, especially after just completing the tutorial. But he believes a human cannot defeat a demon and unleashes a massive barrage of spikes. The spikes pierce Zion and his blood gushes out. But even so, our protagonist wields his sword, determined to stab the opponent at any cost. He continues to strike. The counter climbs higher and higher, until it finally reaches 10 billion hits. Zion manages to land a powerful blow against the demon, making it realize something. However, it's too late for Bestran to do anything, as our protagonist successfully defeats him. He points his sword at the demon and confidently states that humans are not just objects for demons to trade and sell. With unshakable determination, Zion declares that he will destroy the tower and ascend to the next floor, and then to the very top. The ceiling begins to crumble around him, as he declares that he will see the end of the world the demons created. A system window appears, his information filled only with question marks. Bestran struggles desperately, pleading with him not to do it, claiming there is nowhere else to go. However, our hero refuses to listen, turning instead to the inscriptions he found on the lower floors, which revealed that the Nightmare Towers are just imitations of the first nightmare at the top of the Tree of Illusion. He realizes that these messages were left by the creator of the Nightmare Tower, Moloch. Our boy now knows that this place is just a root, and where there is a root, there must also be a branch. Therefore, he unleashes his power to completely destroy the ceiling, and then a message appears, declaring the end of the tutorial. However, it states that he failed to complete the game. An instant later, James wakes up in a new place that resembles a forest. He looks ahead, finally finding what he was looking for. Enormous beasts burst through the dense foliage, growling heavily as they surround him. One of them leaps toward him to attack, but he eliminates it with ease using his shallow thrust. Suddenly, the ground trembles as a gigantic beast emerges. Our boy immediately realizes that his special thrust won't be enough against something like this. Using his normal thrust, he eliminates the giant beast with a single blow. Later, he collects all of their horns. Unexpectedly, a scream cuts through the air, and strange, ant-like people appear from the trees. One of them, shouting and pointing directly at him, makes him imagine they came in search of the horns. So, he holds out a horn as if offering it in exchange for answers, but no one reacts. Instead, the one in front lunges with a blade, and our protagonist quickly dodges. He warns them to calm down, or he will eliminate them all, but they continue to attack. He decides to take them down. After a short period, all the ant people lie unconscious on the ground, as our boy sits on top of one of them, demanding that it speak. The creature bites its own tongue, leaving him staring in silence. Later, Jayden starts to search their belongings and finds a small dimensional backpack, which the system explains will give him 70 cubic feet of space to store his belongings. He notes that the system hasn't been working properly since he left the Tower of Nightmares. He had assumed it would work the same way in all worlds, even in the Great Realm, but that is clearly not the case. As he searches, our protagonist also finds some strange colored stones that they were carrying, and discovers they are soul stones that increase spiritual power, something he realizes with suspicion. Wow, every enemy he eliminated had one, which made him wonder if these people were jewelers or something of the sort, but he simply stuffed the loot into his backpack, not bothering to figure it out until later. Meanwhile, his sword opened its jaws and devoured all the bodies. He found an ancient scroll, and although it didn't look like much, something about it made him pause. When Jayden unrolled it, he saw the words Chaos Image Tree and remembered that he hadn't found this information in the files Eve Strange had sent him. Elsewhere, the ground shook as stampeding beasts emerged. Surprisingly, a girl with wild red hair, along with other people, was fleeing from the chaos. She threw a weapon that missed the monsters completely, and instead hit a tall, red-haired guy in the knee, making him stumble. He tried to play it off with a laugh, wondering how she managed to make a shot like that. She quickly apologizes, but then immediately yells sorry again. This time not to him, but because a two-horned beast is charging right behind her. She runs towards two guys who shout for her to stop, but she just keeps running. Up above, Jayden watches the scene from a rocky cliff and immediately notices that the redhead is the most powerful in the group. But their teamwork is a complete disaster, and he can't help but wonder how they managed to get through the Tower of Nightmares. The red-haired warrior finally charges forward with flames erupting around him, and the girl joins him with a smile. But her first reckless swing almost hits her comrade. He jumps back and yells at her, while she just shrugs indifferently. And it's at this moment that our hero, suddenly descending from above, Jayden drives his blade home in a single strike, precisely into the monster's skull, sending blood spurting as the beast collapses. As he collects himself, he sees the red-haired warrior staring him down, her jaw clenched and eyes locked onto him. Once the chaos subsides, the girl's companions approach Jayden and casually ask if he minds if they take the horn. Her friend seems hesitant, quietly pointing out that perhaps they shouldn't, since the horn is worth a great deal. They explain that it usually takes 10 people to defeat a two-horned beast, but our hero says nothing, although he recalls that the one he killed earlier had 5 horns. He concludes that monsters with more horns are stronger. The red-haired girl approaches, demanding to know who he really is. She states that even in the midst of all the chaos, no one could ever defeat a two-horned beast with a single strike like that. She presses him for an answer, wanting to know where he came from, and Jayden looks directly into her eyes, asking, "What is the chaos?" The girl freezes, realizing he doesn't know what the chaos is. The red-haired warrior stares intently at Jayden and immediately starts firing off questions, asking for his name, why he's there, and how he can even speak their language. However, Jayden only gives brief nods in response. They murmur among themselves that it's unusual to encounter a language barrier nowadays. When the redhead asks if he minds them taking the two horns corpse, our boy agrees without a complaint. Meanwhile, the redhead notes that his fighting style was strange, as he displayed no real skills, yet killed the beast with a single, clean thrust. After this, she tries to use her ability on him, but the system immediately returns a message, stating that it failed. She discovers that his spiritual power is no greater than that of a non-adept. Demanding to know who he is, she pressures him to reveal his identity and explain why he's there in the middle of the chaos. Like a seasoned player, our protagonist repeats the word chaos and questions what it means. The woman accuses him of playing games, saying his words make no sense and asking if he's having trouble understanding her. But Jayden calmly replies that he understands her perfectly, then gets lost in his thoughts. He remembers his old bonds and affiliations on Earth, but realizes that everything has lost its meaning. The moment he entered the tower, he made new friends inside, but those memories were erased after the tutorial. Even though they're still alive somewhere on Earth, they probably don't even remember him or anything that happened in the tower. He tells the red-haired girl that he doesn't remember anything. The woman scoffs, questioning him. She asks if he really thinks she'll believe he has amnesia. Our protagonist snaps back that he never said he had amnesia. She argues that it's the same thing and continues to press him when suddenly, his sword begins to vibrate and then opens its jaws. The red-haired girl immediately recognizes it as a spirit weapon. The sword begins to devour the weapons that Jayden kept in his backpack. The people around murmur about him feeding his blade with equipment, while the girl is stunned because he is displaying his spirit weapon to everyone without having the slightest idea what he's doing. She is clearly frustrated that he has ruined her mission to eliminate that red-haired man. Then an idea strikes her, and she whispers to him, mentioning that she has a proposal. After a short while, our hero learns her name, and also finds out more about the people she is traveling with. These people belong to the Red Fox clan. Jayden immediately realizes that her so-called proposal is for them to take down the clan, as she had warned him that they would also come after him. Later that night, the red-haired man suggests they make camp, to avoid attracting horned beasts. Afterwards, our protagonist notices that the village isn't far away. Through his second stage of awakening or comprehension, he overheard the members of the Red Fox clan talking, agreeing that his victory over the two-horned beast was only thanks to the spirit weapon. They claim that such weapons can only be found in the abyss, also called the branches of the illusion tree. However, our hero knows they are mistaken, since his weapon came from the roots. Even though the demon had told him the equipment in the tower wasn't very good, he never imagined anyone would covet it. In any case, he realized this place wasn't a very good realm after all. And soon, the enemies began to make their move. Mina appears to warn the protagonist, telling him to use the sword that had devoured other weapons to eliminate the enemies. Unexpectedly, he replies that he no longer has it, as he lent it out for inspection, and she becomes furious, calling him careless. At that moment, members of the Red Fox clan appear. The redhead thanks Gyro for the weapon, while the other members are surprised to have been called just to eliminate two people. Mina retorts with a curse. As the enemies charge forward, she attacks without hesitation. She strikes one of them in the head and another in the torso. She takes down several opponents in rapid succession, then kicks one of them back. After throwing another dagger, she lands and apologizes, with a mischievous smirk for having thrown her weapon so forcefully. She then summons more daggers around her to eliminate the remaining enemies. The redhead says that from the moment Mina lured the monsters here, he already suspected something was wrong, but now he is absolutely certain that she is none other than the infamous Witch of Massacre. He demands to know who sent an assassin from the dark forest, all the way to this place. She replies directly, saying that it doesn't matter who gave the order, because countless non-adapters have already been massacred by the Red Fox clan, and many want them dead. He laughs, stating that there's no way the Dark Forest clan would make a move for something so trivial. Before he can continue, her daggers flash toward him in a sudden strike, but he counters immediately, then declares that this can only be a personal mission. Raising the spirit weapon, he tells her that if that's the case, her life will end right there. She narrows her eyes, and he calmly explains that he didn't come alone, as he brought reinforcements. Looking around, she understands what he means and quickly realizes that all of them are, at a minimum, first-stage adapters. Upon counting, she reaches 40 in total. The redhead adds that facing such a powerful witch from the dark forest, a woman who once killed a two-horned beast single-handedly, required this number of people. He then comments that, if he had known the spirit weapon would fall into his hands so easily, he would have never called his master. As soon as he finishes, a large clawed figure approaches and tells her to consider it an honor. This newcomer is Clante, the Black Fox, master of the Red Fox clan, and a third-stage adapter, who declares that half of the Red Fox clan has gathered there to hunt her down. She gives a mocking smile in response and turns to Jian, asking him for a moment. She throws something in his direction with a quick instruction for him. He catches it and finds a nightmare stone in his palm. Confused, our boy asks what it is. She explains that it's actually an escape stone that will teleport him to the nearest fortress, but she only has one. He remains silent for a moment, then asks if she would go back to the past if she had the chance. She calmly says she would never go back. If she dies here, it will all have been worth it, but she would never return. Jayden looks at her and promises that she will not die today. Then, he moves, striking the enemies with his second sword and taking them down in rapid succession. Immediately after, a devastating attack hits the battlefield as the King of Fire unleashes his technique. Even so, our protagonist charges forward with all his might, invoking Oblivion, the third stage of awakening. He slices through the approaching wave of flames and force. The impact creates shockwaves that rip across the field as their weapons collide. Although the Black Fox presses his attack with overwhelming force, the counterattack is brutal. When the dust settles, Jayden is the one left standing, reclaiming his spirit weapon from the redhead. An instant later, a massive blue slash tears across the battlefield, scattering the remaining enemies. As Mina watches the scene, she calls out his name. When he turns, she approaches and asks about his true identity, but he replies that she already knows, then asks if she has also lost her memory, which leaves her unsettled. She demands her gemstone back. However, he says he lost it. Her voice grows harsh as she questions how he could lose something so valuable, but he simply tells her to look for it on her. own. Later, Mina does exactly that. She rummages through everything she finds, but the stone remains missing, which makes her regret giving it to a stranger. Meanwhile, our hero watches, and when she insists, he repeats that she already knows who he is. He finally reveals that he's human. She stares at him and asks if he's being serious. He replies by asking if she is also human. When she admits she is, he says that is more than enough for him. She sits down beside him, admitting to herself that maybe he's right, since the simple fact they are both human is enough. The next morning, Mina asks Jayden if he really doesn't remember coming to Chaos, or even stepping foot in the Great Realm. When he answers that he hasn't, she admits she's envious of him. She also explains that most people who end up here feel the same way, because their arrival is always tied to memories they would rather erase. He turns the question back to her, wondering how she got here. Suddenly, she stops walking and warns him that he'll regret asking that later. Finally, they arrive at the Gorgon's fortress. Upon entering, Jayden notices a circular structure nearby, and realizes it looks exactly like the summoning circle he saw on the first floor of the tower. He approaches, and in that instant, a red light shines as a crowd of terrified people appears inside, screaming and begging for help. Mina looks at the group and comments on the sheer number of people who appeared at once. She mentions that's how she ended up in Chaos, and that you should never ask anyone in Chaos how they got there. Then, she welcomes him to the world of the dead, Chaos. Jayden pieces it together and concludes that those who die in the Great Lands are chosen by either the gods of the abyss or the masters of the Great Realm. The chosen ones achieve glory in battle, but most fail and end up in Chaos, the trunk of the Tree of Illusion. Then, Mina explains that if someone dies again in Chaos, the death becomes permanent, and the person is absorbed by the Tree of Illusion for nutrients. Those who die don't shed blood because they are already dead. Our boy realizes he has been living among the dead. Mina further explains that the Nightmare Towers are the roots, Chaos is the trunk, and the Abyss is the branches. All of these are parts of the Tree of Illusion. With this information, Jayden remembers that Mulak mentioned this tree, explaining that the roots serve only to support the top of the Tree of Illusions. He discovers he's not in the wrong place after all, and intends to reach the top. Shortly after, uniformed soldiers invade the area and begin to control the situation, ordering the newcomers to form a line and head to the speech hall. An officer distributes clothes, pointing at a man for looking too weak and thin. Mina approaches Officer James, who questions her about her presence at the northern checkpoint. She replies that she was just passing through and only wanted to enter. However, he informs her that the new rules require a certificate. Looking at Jay, she asks if he has a certificate. Surprisingly, he nods his head, which sparks a clue in her mind. Therefore, she claims to James that she forgot her certificate. To justify herself, she shows James a horn from a two-horned beast and asks if it will suffice. After a moment, he agrees. James then demands Jay's certificate, but he bluntly replies that he doesn't have one. Mina suggests she could help if he asked, but James interrupts her and insists that no one enters without documents. Jay agrees and starts looking for something in his backpack. This makes Mina think he must have decided to kill the guards to get in. Therefore, she immediately places herself between our hero and James, about to explain something in a panic. However, an imposing voice interrupts her, asking what is going on. The soldiers freeze as a man in uniform appears. It's Chief Dalton, responsible for the checkpoint. He approaches James and demands an explanation. James points to Jay and says he is trying to enter without a certificate. Dalton doesn't hesitate and says that entry is impossible, without proof of identity. He explains that the inspector has permission to deny entry to anyone who does not have it. He even begins to read the laws of the fortress and uses his legal code to make everyone kneel. Next, he also mentions the restriction law. However, Jayden uses his blade to cut through the skill barrier of the legal code that was protecting Calton. Just then, Mina interrupts Calton and asks what is actually listed on the certificate. Calton says it lists the person's identity, records, and skill data. Jayden replies that he doesn't need one, as he refuses to show anything about himself. The chief is left confused, since his legal code isn't working on our protagonist. Therefore, he decides to detain him according to the law and summons chains using a skill called Silver Restraint. The chains surge forward and try to wrap around Jayden, but the young man resists until they shatter. All the guards freeze in shock. Calton demands to know how that was possible. After this, our hero decides to do the same thing Mina did. This makes her remember that she bribed James using the horn. On the other hand, James turns pale, because he was the one who accepted the bribe. Jayden rummages through his belongings, takes something out, and hands it to Calton. Meanwhile, James screams for an execution, but Calton silences him and asks Jayden directly if that is his name. When Jayden says yes, Calton looks at him and declares that he is the messenger of the Greens. The device then scans Mina and emits a warning that her soul corruption has exceeded the safety limit, saying that she needs to take her medicine. Calton looks at her and asks why she is pushing herself so hard. Jayden tilts his head, wondering what soul corruption means. While taking the medicine, Mina explains that it's a chronic disease that everyone in Chaos carries, the kind of disease that gets worse simply by existing there, and she says that's why the horns of certain monsters are worth so much, since they're the only medicine that slows the spread. Mina adds that she got one for free, thanks to him. Next, Calton approaches Jayden and says it's time to check his corruption level as he picks up the scanner. The machine flashes green, then orange, and finally red, before the reading suddenly fails right after that. The number on the display drops straight to 0. He and James are stunned, and then he returns the soul stone. Our boy asks if he doesn't want it, but Calton calls him a messenger of the Greens and warns him to never hand over stones like that so lightly. Our protagonist replies that he isn't anyone's messenger, nor is he part of the Greens, but Calton retorts that he already knows that. Later, Mina and our hero head towards the fortress. James watches them from a distance and wonders if letting them pass was really a good idea. The captain turns to him and asks if he even knows what a soul stone is. James replies that it's valuable and increases an adapter's spiritual power, but Calton tells him that's not the whole story. He takes off his only glove and shows his burned hand, the effect of the magic stone our hero gave him. He explains that only a green can carry it without succumbing to corruption, while anyone else is consumed by it. He points out that Jayden doesn't seem to be a green, but he still handled the stone without any problems. James asks if this means he trusts him. Calton says he doesn't trust the man, only his soul, since the device never fails. The only time it can't get a reading is when a soul is completely pure. He states that our protagonist's soul is the purest in all the chaos, so whether he's a green or not doesn't matter, because what they need is simply someone who can handle the stone. When James mentions their master's condition and asks if it's related, the captain says he doesn't know. However, he mentions rumors of someone at the gate accepting bribes, and James freezes as he realizes he's been caught. Meanwhile, inside the gate, our boy thinks about the process of getting Mina inside, remembering how Calton listed the regulations, and told her he would let her go, only because Jayden asked him to. The man warned her never to try bribing anyone again. He then tells Jayden that she will recover soon. As they arrive at a bridge, our hero asks someone if they know a blacksmith skilled enough to handle his spirit sword, but the stranger replies that he doubts anyone with that skill exists. While displaying his spirit sword, someone spots him under the bridge with a malicious smile. Later, Mina finally recovers, realizing they are already deep in the city. Jayden then tells her to go her own way. She is taken by surprise and demands to know what he means. She shouts for him to wait and accuses him of abandoning her, running after our protagonist to ask if he's still upset that she tried to leave him at the gate. He replies that bringing him to the fortress was enough, and she will only slow him down from now on. He states that they are different. However, Mina pursues him, insisting that he doesn't know the city and will end up in trouble. He replies that he can just ask for directions, but she yells that he should ask her since she knows the way better than anyone. It is then that our boy finally tells her he is looking for a dream demon. She quickly says she might know where the demon is and offers to guide him. Our protagonist agrees, but explains that they need to deal with something else first. Up ahead, a group of men appears, and one of them points out that they have found their targets. They ask about the spirit sword, but Mina warns them to leave before the situation gets worse. The men mock her, saying their youngest will be 12 years old this year and claim that swearing is inappropriate for a child. They demand the spirit sword as payment, or they will let the youngest handle the situation. However, our hero silences them with an impassive expression. The enemy leader warns that handing over the sword is the only way to avoid harm, but before he can finish his speech, Mina shouts back at him, pointing to their youngest member, who is actually a giant. Completely ignoring her, the giant lunges forward and raises his axe, but our boy's blade hits its mark. Slicing off his arm, he tells them that if they're really going to fight, they should hurry up. One of the men shouts indignantly, another accuses him of cutting off the youngest's hand, and the third bellows that they'll never forgive him. The entire group charges forward, and our swordsman moves immediately to eliminate them. Meanwhile, Leon cleans his sword while Mina just stares at him, trying to understand how he defeated them. With just thrusts, he simply replies that thrusting is the only skill he has. This leaves her even more confused. She blinks, wondering if he's messing with her, but then he starts to explain his different types of thrusts: light thrust, normal thrust, and strong thrust. This only makes things weirder. It reminds her of someone else who also uses just one technique, although that person uses slashes instead of thrusts. Then, she asks why his attack missed earlier and ended up destroying the ceiling. She figures he might have lost control for a second, but he tells her he sensed someone using hidden skills in that area and purposely blew up the roof to scare them off and make them flee. She asks if destroying roofs is really how he intimidates people, and he just shrugs, wondering if everyone doesn't do that. Then, Mina starts suggesting dramatic names for his sword skill, but he ignores them all and keeps walking. She keeps trying with more names as they walk, but our boy just tells her to keep moving, and that he doesn't care. Eventually, they arrive at the fortress of Twilight, and Mina explains that the place belongs to a dream demon. She leads him to a heavily reinforced door, and an employee comes out to warn them that if they are there to deliver something, it's going to take a while, since the workshop's head manager isn't present. Only the vice manager is available. He is busy administering a test to the other staff members inside. An enormous man stands by a table surrounded by apprentices, and on it lies a sword, forged from the horn of a quadhorn. The man, Michael Garnard, is the workshop's vice manager, and he explains that while the blade is complete, they still need to drill a hole in the hilt to finish it properly. The apprentices are eager to prove their worth, but he warns them immediately that it's nearly impossible to even leave a mark. He promises that whoever succeeds will get to act as vice manager for a day. One by one, they approach, but none are successful, and one of them even ends up breaking the tool. Michael scoffs at the group, calling them weak and criticizing them for being useless. The attempts continue until one employee, who was greeted outside, steps up to try, but at that exact moment, Jayden silently enters. The employee immediately starts shouting that no one can just walk in like that. Michael looks over and sees Jayden. Our protagonist steps forward, saying he wants to give it a try. The staff members begin to whisper, wondering if he's some wandering blacksmith. Michael doesn't care who he is, and insists he'll fail, assuming he only feels confident because the others performed so poorly. Jayden simply asks whether he should go ahead and make the hole or not, but the vice manager begins to lecture about how Quadhorn's horns are incredibly resilient, and how it's not that his employees are bad, it's just that he is on another level. Before he can even finish, Jayden touches the blade once with his finger, and it immediately cracks and shatters. Everyone freezes in shock, and Michael begins to scream furiously that he is crazy for destroying something so valuable and demands to know what he should say to the customer, but I don't respond that he took it easy, saying that breaking it completely would have been even easier, and then casually shrugs and apologizes. The vice manager doesn't calm down at all, and shouts that Zari won't fix anything, especially because the four-pointed horn was irreplaceable. It was at that moment that Jayden took another horn out of his backpack, and everyone instantly recognizes him as a pentahorn. Michael takes a closer look, and realizes that it's a Granok. Silence takes over the environment, and when Jayden asks if it's good enough, Michael just nods with the situation reversed. Our boy asks if he can use his forge for a moment, and Michael orders the workers to close the doors in the meantime. Mino decides to leave him alone and leaves while Michael begins to give him a complete guided tour of the Twilight Forge. He even grants Jayden the title of vice manager for a day and tells him he can use whatever he needs. Our protagonist nods and raises the Granok horn, and the still curious man asks where he got it. Jayden simply responds that he hunted the pentahorn alone and caught it, which Michael doesn't believe for a second. Jayden, so he asks for help since it's the first time he's done a hem. Or vice manager with confusion asks if he really intends use that material for a sheath, but it's already the jaguar with his weapon, and Michael's eyes widen. It looks like a replica of the ice dragon's sword, but when he tries to grab Granok's horn, the sword reacts violently, releasing a blast of energy and absorbing the horn completely. Michael immediately realizes that it is a spiritual weapon, and the aura within it belongs to a high-level race. The weapon begins to change shape in front of everyone as it evolves, and when he finishes, all the material disappears. Our boy simply says, "There is another," and hands over a second horn. Michael clearly sees that this is from a five-horned beast, and Jayden asks what he should do next, as temporary vice manager, saying he wants to observe Michael's forging style. The man asks if he has any project in mind, but they tell him to decide. Michael finally formally introduces himself and promises to show him his best work, Jurgen Cheever. Gorgon's prime minister leans back with a drink in his hand, his eyes fixed on the man kneeling in front of him. The man tries to explain himself by saying that after the massacre of street gangsters, he somehow missed the target. He frowns, questioning how someone like that could just disappear, and the man admits he has no idea. He describes how one moment everything was normal, and suddenly, everything went dark. When he regained consciousness, he found himself on the roof without remembering anything about what happened. In the meantime, Jurgen asks if the target heard, and something makes sense. Whoever that person is must have realized your master-level stealth skill, which means, who is not dealing with a weak opponent. Jurgen concludes that the target must be at least a 5th stage adapter. With this in mind, he orders a search throughout the city, demanding more people, more vigilance, and no mistakes. The hooded man bows, murmurs his agreement, and leaves quickly. As the Prime Minister remains seated for a moment longer, a low rumble shakes the ground as his grip on the glass tightens, and he mutters to his lord to wait in the meantime. In a noisy tavern, a floating screen shows Siren presenting the top 10. She announces that it's time for the final video. The filming begins. It's that famous solo passage through the 9th floor with a lone figure, moving so fast he becomes just a blur. One bargoer wonders out loud what happened to that guy, while the other jokes, saying that everyone in the bar loves him. Does anyone else chime in with the latest gossip? The tower's entire farming system has been disabled, because the demon controlling him was caught trying to manipulate the outcome. His friend laughs, saying that the devil abandoned everything and ran away, and now many believe that the video is fake. They start to argue about why someone would destroy a first-generation tower built with loans. One insists that the demon must be pampered, while the other jokes that he would have sold it at a discount. He asks for more beer, and the bartender starts to serve, but silence takes over the atmosphere. When the door opens with a bang, all eyes turn to her as she enters, loud and burning. She walks straight to the counter, she sits down, and before anyone can say anything, a man approaches her, complimenting her appearance. He tries to flirt, but she's not interested. With a glare and a wave of dark energy, she sends him away, and he quickly walks away. Still furious, Mino mumbles about feeling terrible, and throws a gold coin on the counter, demanding enough alcohol to knock it over later. She starts yelling about Jayden, complaining about how cocky he is. Our boy's name keeps coming up in her rant, until the bartender sighs, mentioning that everyone has heard too much about him. So Claire, the tavern owner, intervenes and asks why Mino is being so dramatic, if she's not even drunk yet, and wonders why she's still around someone she says she hates. Mino responds brusquely that it's not like that, but admits that every time she sees Iwan, something inside her lights up. She remembers how our protagonist walked straight into the chaos, brandishing his sword, destroying everything in her path without hesitation. She can't forget his look at her, repeating his words that they are different. The boy points out that everyone else, including Claire, they work hard just to survive, but this guy appeared out of nowhere. She remembers asking what he would do if you had a nightmare, and all Jayden said was that there was no point in explaining. Because she wouldn't understand, she complains that he always ignores her and belittles everyone. Claire sighs, putting her hand on her head, and says that our hero is just immature. She warns Mino to keep her distance. Mino tries to argue, but Claire's expression hardens when she says that being around someone like that isn't courageous. It's reckless. If Mino continues playing with fire, he will certainly get burned. Before Mino can respond, the door lights up brightly. A flaming ray cuts through the air. Heading towards the counter, she turns around in time to catch a shiny golden bird, who drops a sealed letter into his hands. Nino looks at the wax seal and recognizes the letter from Calton Raviere. Addressed to the mind of the Dark Forest, she wonders why he would contact her, but before he can open it, a huge figure emerges from the crowd. He stares at her and asks if she is the witch from the massacre. Her eyes widen when his sharp clawed hand reaches out, grabbing her wrist. Boy smiles, admitting it's her, but the man pulls her closer and says he has a job for her and that she will obey whether she wants to or not. Elsewhere in Twilight Fall, the ground shakes as a blast of energy spreads, throwing dirt and rubble everywhere. As Michael is thrown backwards, a booming voice roars through the chaos, warning him that he is not allowed to enter that place. Michael struggles to lift his head, dazed and shaken, just in time to see a monstrous figure appear before him, a terrifying beast, which radiates an overwhelming presence. Paralyzed, he cannot move. Before he can organize his thoughts, Diawan's voice cuts the air. Our protagonist looks at him, reminding Michael that he should be fusing the sword, and that if he really wants to help, you better fulfill your mission. Michael strikes the horn repeatedly with his tool, but no matter how hard the blow is, it doesn't leave the slightest mark. He finally admits the truth. The item's level is far beyond its capacity. Joan shakes his head and says it's not about level before the craftsman can react. Our boy grabs your head and forces the first stage of awakening. It's called doubt. So, without hesitation, he takes him to the second stage, understanding that opens Michael's eyes to what is actually before him. The horn in front of him begins to spew a supernatural substance, and Michael staggers back as a black mist rises to flood the air of darkness. A pentahorn slowly emerges and crashes into the ground with such great force that the earth opens up and explodes around Michael and our protagonist. The fighter shouts at him, demanding that he pull himself together and really fight. If he intends to do anything, he faces the beast, realizing with shock that this is his true form, and begins to question why he wasted all his time using such small and insignificant skills against something like this. Seems too real. And he convinces himself that it must all be a dream, so if he just wakes up, everything will disappear. Because he lives short, he runs towards the door. But the gigantic shadow of the pentahorn, combined with the sound of our boy's voice, makes his legs lock up and freeze him in place. Jawa inspires ready to move, and in a sudden rush, Michael bursts through the door screaming for help, only to come to a screeching halt upon seeing an endless array of undead creatures calling the vice manager standing in the hallway. A giant eye appears, fixing its gaze directly on him, while telling him that he doesn't even have the right to look at that place. Then the ground suddenly opens, throwing him backwards and leaving our protagonist dazed and disoriented. He doesn't give him time to recover. Grabbing Michael's hammer, he moves forward and strikes the pentacorn's horn. Using the opening to get closer, he launches himself into attack range, sliding through the closing jaws. And when the beast attacks again, he is already there, throwing a punch with all his strength. Towards her face, the battle erupts in a roar, and Michael's roar joins the chaos, while the fight later continues outside. Michael asks if DeJuan will simply leave, and the other responds that his role there is complete. Michael offers to give a name to the sword, calling that of Doki Bu, and when our hero asks if that means lonely hero, Michael insists it's the perfect name before turning to leave. The others say goodbye to him, but suddenly Michael shouts again, demanding to know what he looks like in John's world. Our boy turns around, and with a simple answer, says he looks human, while the Dayawan walks ahead. He notices Mino following him. She wonders aloud if he is worried that she is up to something. When he bluntly asks her if she is who she says she is, she responds directly that her plan is to kill him. He doesn't hesitate, and just asks what she expects gain from this. As he approaches, she hands him a small package, explaining that they are clothes, partly an apology and partly because she is tired of seeing him dressed like that. She then asked him what he intends to do now that he has failed to track down the demon of his dreams. Our guy mentions that Miguel once suggested a way to track him, and once he succeeds, his plan is to go to the Tree of Images and, looking for the way to the abyss, it pressures him again, questioning why he would go so far, and he simply asks if she is really that curious. Minu warns that even if he reaches the abyss, those who return are forever marked as warriors of the abyss. Our protagonist says he has no intention of returning. She becomes restless and demands to know who he thinks he is, to even try. She accuses him of moving on without caring about anyone, calling him insensitive, cold, and worse things. But he adds that he doesn't see the people here as human. Maybe they're not as strong, or brave, but they're still human, just like her. Yuan remembers his moments with her, and using his awakening ability, he notices a message above her, warning not to have foolish ideas and threatening the life of an old woman. If she breaks her promise, he wonders if those people have hostages to capture him. Meanwhile, a hooded figure watches our hero could save himself. The hostage is worth the risk, but decides it's useless, since saving them wouldn't change anything. How suspicion shows you the truth of this world, where numbers and data control everything, and people sell their souls for bigger numbers. Our boy decides to leave Mino and continue searching for the dream demon unexpectedly. She breaks the wall between them and reaches out to him, and Mino declares their work is over, saying he won't follow someone with a purpose like his. Jaewon watches her as she turns and walks away, admitting to himself that she now appears human. Then, through her ability to awaken, our protagonist hears the hooded figure speak behind him, who mutters curses against Mino for having betrayed them, and admits that they brought the dream demon for nothing. Our hero feels a rush of excitement as he realizes they have a dream demon. With them later, Mino walks alone through the streets. After a while, she pushes a door and enters the tavern, apologizing to someone for making them wait. A voice responds, and inside a man is standing, while Clara is held by a strange individual, a man named Jennifer, the oldest of the three brothers. Jennifer asks why Mino came alone, and why their agreement failed. She tells him that the person they are waiting for will not come, since his goal is to destroy the world. Suddenly, she advances, spears of light shoot towards her, and Diane laughs, calling her crazy, while shadows rise up beside her. One of them moves forward to attack him, but she blocks it with a spear and retaliates by spinning and throwing her to the other side of the room. He orders his ally to capture someone, but she warns him that they will be hunted through the dark forest if they do so. Tian responds that there is no branch there to stop them and says that she and Claire will be dead before anyone even finds out. Blue energy explodes in your hand, forming 7 pink spears that go together with 7 more Karam daggers. She attacks, but, unfortunately, Jane blocks her and mocks, saying it's just another trick promising to tear the room apart, so he pauses. And she remembers when Jaewon asked her if she would go back to the past. She knows she would. If it meant being with him again. Johnny raises his gun, as she wonders if she would have lived long enough. To see the world fall before your blow hits is blocked. Jaelone appears shocked. She asks him why he came. He replies that the clothes she gave him didn't fit. She asks if that's really the only reason our boy lays down his sword and demands to know if they have the nightmare, ordering someone to bring him to him. The nearby enemies begin to whisper among themselves. One wonders if Jaeon has completely lost his mind, while the other remembers rumors that he once challenged the fortress and insists that he can't be thinking straight. Meanwhile, Mine warns our boy that the enemies in front of him are fourth-stage adapters or opponents too dangerous to be underestimated, no matter how confident one feels. Even so, she admits that she doesn't believe he will lose this fight. The leader of the enemy group, Jania, advances with 2 of his men, declaring that they will teach him a lesson. However, our protagonist immediately swings his sword to intercept the attack, and then dodge with agility to avoid the next blow. The men leave in disbelief, muttering in shock about how he supposedly wasn't an adapter, and questioning whether he really could be the Abyss. Warrior Jane tries to argue that a fourth-stage adapter should have posed a similar level of threat, although at least the beast would have been able to withstand an attack. Like this, before Claire screams in pain, suddenly one of the men urges his comrade not to hesitate, and to finish the job by forcefully copying the prisoner while ordering her to be still and quiet. Minos turns to Claire, begging her to hold on just a little longer, and promising that they will save her. She then looks directly at Jaewon and asks if he can get our guy. Wonders why she is asking this, since he just came for the nightmare and nothing else, but still shouts for them to attack quickly. Skeletal figures advance as Claire roars for them to move faster. Jael raises her shining sword, and in doing so, an intense blue beam shoots into the sky. In the distance, the soldiers see the column of light, and Calton recognizes her, immediately ordering his men to advance back to the tavern. A man breaks through, shouting about breaking the barrier. Orders are given, while Jania is given the mission to surround the place. Soldiers position themselves quickly, an armored squad advances, and Calton steps forward calling Jaeon, who responds that the timing is perfect. He points directly at the enemy group and accuses them of violating Article 276, Paragraph 4 of Gorgon, using the tavern as base to try to destroy the world. Tanya quickly counters with her own accusation, but Calton agrees with the restrictor, citing Articles 174 and 124 of Gorgon, and declares that for the crimes of illegal destruction of property and kidnapping of a citizen, the accused will be placed under emergency restraint. Currents suddenly involve the enemy squad. And Calton warns that resistance is useless. Johnny advances anyway, and the weapons clash, until a sharp crack cuts the knight's weapon. When Calton pushes him back, he lets go back, shouts to his ally, and hits the ground with his weapon again, but more chains open, wrapping him tightly and throwing him against the ground breathlessly. He admits that he will surrender, and Calton considers this a wise choice. Jane smiles at him dismissively and calls him naive, throwing then a black sphere that explodes in dense, suffocating smoke outside. A man with purple hair watches in silence as another calls out to him, warning that the younger man has already inhaled part of the clouds. Black women, a masked man holds an injured companion, scolding him for not wearing the mask correctly and telling him to hold on tight, as perhaps it is still possible to survive a small amount. Another masked figure turns furious, accusing him of releasing the dark clouds without Arch's permission, and demanding to know if the witch of the massacre was it really worth such a big risk. Black Surlong, Gumbong Elder, asks if she is really that dangerous, but the man shakes his head and responds that the real problem is not her but Calton. Surlang responds enthusiastically that breathing the dark clouds got him what he deserved. He then points to our hero, wondering who it would be, while the giant is the tavern master supporting Mino. In the meantime, Johnny is stunned by the fact that someone came out of the dark clouds unscathed. He admits to never having seen anyone from the Greens without antennas. The group approaches our boy, leaving our protagonist uneasy as he draws his sword. Our boy, with the scabbard, channels the power of Garnak and sends a powerful aura of energy towards your enemies. This forces some of them to stagger backwards, while others are hit so hard that they are thrown to the side. With this wave of energy, our hero launches his attacks, hitting several opponents and knocking them to the ground. Dead, witnessing the situation, Sir Lang runs away, screaming for Diane to deal with him. Diane curses. Sir Lang then looks at her fallen comrades. Jaewon advances, closing the distance and giving only one choice, demanding that Jania reveal the location of the dream demon. Upon hearing the name, Jania's eyes darken, and he gives her a chilling warning, saying that if they find out that the information was leaked, he will wish he had died with no other option. Jania picks up a stone of fallen souls. Our protagonist has seen stones like this before. grabbed by city residents. The same stones that Mino once explained were not drugs, but a method to slow the growing corruption that corrodes the soul. However, Diana's body contorts violently as the released power passes through, twisting her flesh and reshaping her bones, until something monstrous appears in its place. What emerges is an undead beast advancing through the streets with uncontrolled strength, and eliminating people in her path. Now, Diane, transformed into this monster, can see the truth of the world he lives in. As he watches, he wonders what he was so afraid of. Now that he can do whatever he wants, he sends his tentacles to attack our boy, but when he sees Jayden as human, questions how a human can exist in this world. Meanwhile, our hero cannot see Jania's true nature even with suspicion, yet he ignores this and focuses on his enemy using his spiritual sword. He defeats her instantly. In his final moments, Johnny glimpses his past life before his body disperses into the air, leaving our protagonist hoping to find the whereabouts of the dream demon with those who remained in the tavern. Mino warns Jayden not to approach, but he just stares at her and realizes that she is sick. Before anyone can say anything else, a masked man invades the room and calls for Calton, who from the ground immediately orders him to alert the internal forces in the meantime. Mino quickly turns to our boy and tells him to kill her. She repeats the order, insisting that he kill her while she is still herself. Our protagonist looks on, noticing that she is human but cannot understand why her forgetfulness, it doesn't work on her yet. He reminds himself that he doesn't need emotions in your path, so you won't hesitate the moment you're about to act. Someone shouts at him to wait. Claire runs over and grabs his wrist and insists that there may still be time. They need to take Mino to the medical facility immediately. He asks if she can really survive, but the answer is bleak. If corruption continues to spread, your chances are almost nil. Before he can respond, an alert sounds throughout the fortress, issued by the four Gorgons, announcing that the undead had been discovered inside, and ordering an immediate evacuation. Fear spreads instantly as people panic and scream. And then a man wearing a hat appears with distorted and monstrous features that prove that he is no longer human. The creature attacks and grabs a citizen, and almost immediately, another creature invades the area. A man in a red cloak intervenes to annihilate the living dead inside the medical facility. Claire turns to Jayden, asking out loud if he is the man Mino mentioned. He who ignores all the rules, judges only by his own standards, and decides for himself what it means to be human. She says she knows people like him because she's seen them before, and explains that people here, they didn't adapt because they never had a choice. Our hero responds that it's because they lack courage, but when she insists and asks, courage, so he says nothing. Instead, she tells him there is something he needs to do, and warns him to leave because it will be dangerous for those around him, and she can't stand people like him. This makes our boy remember past hardships as this happens. One guard asks how much medicine Calton has left, and another admits that most of it has already been used. Just to calm him down, with almost nothing left, James immediately demands that they bring him everything. Then the doctors rush to prepare the medicine. John watches as the medicine is administered, but although the doctor works quickly, does nothing to purify the boss, and they can only desperately beg him to resist. Our protagonist then demands to know if there is any way to bring someone back to life after becoming undead, but James brusquely responds that if he knew the answer, I wouldn't be wasting time there doing that. Ignoring the anger, Joan grabs Calton and tells him to wake up, because he needs to ask something without stopping, even when James shouts at him surprisingly. Calton moves a little, looks up, recognizes him, then shakes his hand tightly to ask for a favor to be killed. He insists that our boy is the only one who can do this, but Joan asks why he doesn't ask to be saved. Calton explains that this is the law for those who lose their soul. The corruption meter rises, suddenly, to 94%, and at that moment, I zap the boss. Exterminator of the Great Undead Extermination Force and a 5th stage adapter, advances. Unsheathing his blade, James immediately shouts for him to stop, but Arero ignores him and declares that, according to Article 1, Paragraph 4 of the Special Law of the Gorgona, Calton, head of the Northern Checkpoint, will run immediately. Basically, chaos is a spiritual world. People here generally can't bear the idea of infinite time for a long time, and eventually begin to lose their memories, becoming the monsters known as undead. It is essential that they consume pills regularly to maintain their sanity, otherwise the risk becomes very high even when dead, alive, but weak. It is at least as strong as a 3-horned beast. Whenever something like this happens, the 4 Chaos Fortresses have one single top priority: eliminate the living dead by returning to the naughty story. Announces his farewell to the inspector of the Northern Checkpoint, Calfon Raviere. However, just as he is about to swing his sword, Jayden stops it with her own hand, shocking everyone. The warrior emphasizes the urgency of the situation for our boy, explaining that Calfon Raviere is already a 5th-class adapter, and if he turns into a monster, the consequences can be catastrophic. Upon hearing this, our protagonist offers the horn of a beast. Five-horned officer is shocked, unable to believe he actually possesses such an item. Without missing the opportunity to be cruel, our hero crushes the supposedly indestructible horn with his hand and gives it directly to Cartlan and Mino. Everyone watches in disbelief. James almost cries when he sees the contamination finally being controlled. With everything, Mino's body is too weak to stop the process, and she will become a walking dead despite the medicine. Its contamination rises to 95%. Because of this, Jayden decides to eliminate it immediately. Claire protests, insisting that they must wait for the doctor who can perform the undead cut. Jayden is not sure what that is. A guard mentions that the doctor is busy with the master of Fortaleza, who cannot call the divine doctor for such a trivial matter. While Jayden prepares to eliminate Mino, our hero blocks his path, stating that he is the one who should kill her. Since it was him, she asked after Jayden laughs away. Jayden uses his suspicion technique. Suddenly, he is enveloped by an immense light and transported to another kingdom. An infinite white background. He sees Mino in bed being watched by an old man. The man wonders out loud, who could have done this to good old Mino? The old man notices Jayden behind him and gets amazed that someone has access to this kingdom. He feels the purity, but also the pettiness in our hero's soul. However, Jayden is unable to use suspicion to see the true nature of man. He cannot even rule out the possibility that this is the source of Mino's contamination. Our protagonist attacks, and the old man retaliates with a blow of his own. Both are surprised when the other blocks the attack. In the next instant, Jayden's blow breaks the old man's blade, a sword forged from the crown of a four-horned beast. They both return to the chaos of that strange kingdom. When they see the old man crying, Jayden comments that he is almost sure that he himself broke the sword. It is discovered that the old man's name is Tiao Cairo, Doctor of Misfortune, aka the Divine Doctor. Jerry remembers that the doctor was supposed to be busy at the castle, but Tiangairo admits he doesn't care what happens there. He just can't leave a beauty like Mino dying. Curious about our boy, Xiaomi made a mistake and blames him for not being able to execute the scam of the dead alive, and for having lost his sword of the four-horned beast, which means that now he can't save mine. Suddenly, the doctor's eyes lock onto our hero's spiritual sword, and he becomes instantly excited, complimenting its appearance and asking where it came from. Our boy grabs his arm and asks if letting him use this sword will save Mino. That Honga Aird is completely confident, although he is perplexed that anyone would trust a sword so valuable to a stranger when taking the sword with its scabbard. He marvels at his power so similar to that of its owner. Then the sheath begins to emit an aura, and the doctor is excited to demonstrate his skills to our protagonist. The doctor uses something very similar to our boy's suspicion to uncover the true nature of things. Unfortunately, the doctor faints before completing the undead heist. Admitting that he doesn't have enough mana, the sadness on his face reveals what it means and gets worse. As the kingdom in question begins to collapse, indicating that they are almost out of time, the doctor's sketch of Mino begins to disappear. However, our protagonist holds on tightly to his blade, leaving Tiangairo uneasy, because he is sure that no one can copy his undead move. Our hero ignores it and decides to try his best, even if it's just an imitation anyway. The doctor tells him that it's useless. You can't just imitate the spell after seeing it once. Once he scolds our boy for trying something that the average person can't even imagine. Jayden isn't skilled with cuts or something, but believes that the old man is just making noise for no reason. He asks for silence so he can concentrate, focuses on every detail of darling Mino to make his sketch moving across the vast canvas. Think about your mischief, your heat, your confident look, and all the impressions she left on him. She draws with skill, even adding the mole under her eye. Suddenly, a familiar voice tells him that she is grateful that he got the mole right. It's Mino smiling at him from the bed. Everyone is back in the real world now. Her contamination is decreasing, and the transformation into undead stopped. Claire anxiously asks Mino if she is okay, then notes that part of the energy, our boy's pettiness, has dissipated. Although he still feels like a 10-year-old, he demands to know who Jayden is, and where did he learn the cut for the living dead. In the meantime, Jayden continues to doubt that someone like our protagonist could have replicated the doctor's technique, but the old man confirms. He explains that not everyone can adapt and learn something like the undead strike. You have to be smart like him. The awakened ones are those who are not affected by the rules of the system, and your actions can upset the balance within the chaos. Only a few players in the Great Realm have reached this state in a row. Jerry wants confirmation that Jayden is indeed an awakened player, since, based on what they discussed earlier, this means that the hope of saving the Fortress Master They agree that this is now the top priority. Suddenly, men authorized by the Inner Circle enter the tent, led by the captain of the Dark Souls unit, a 5th stage adapter, and head of the Prime Minister's guardians. I'm already wrong. It's confusing because the unity of Black Souls has nothing to do with the living dead, or his healing unexpectedly. The captain of the Black Souls unit kneels in front of our hero, calling him the Messenger of the Greens, and introducing himself. The doctor and Jayden are both intrigued. Since Jayden doesn't look like any Nakmyang messenger in the Black Soul captain asks him to accompany them to the castle later. In the castle, Prime Minister Jayden greets our swordsman and introduces himself. It's already Wong, he just says his first name, which makes the Prime Minister laugh, thinking our boy is as reserved as Chong Hai-ho. He then asks if our protagonist is really a representative of the Greens. Our hero shakes his head without hesitation, surprising the captain of the Black Soul. Meanwhile, the doctor points out that our boy can manipulate stones of fallen souls, something that only those from the Nakmyan clan can do. He wants to know how Jayden can manipulate the stones, and where did he find them. Jayden simply says that he found the stones somewhere, and never had any problems handling them. Captain Jayden is now curious, asks what happened to the people from whom these stones were obtained. Now I don't hide anything, revealing that they are dead is enough to laugh. You are astonished imagining what could have happened, and adds that these individuals are members of the great families of the kingdom. Our protagonist calmly states that he was the one who killed them. Jayden, laughing, explodes in fury. Before the Prime Minister asks him to calm down, Jayden explains that they attacked him first to take his horn, so he fought in self-defense. This explanation makes perfect sense for the urgent Prime Minister, Tiber, who observes that the Nakmyan clan has always been quite greedy. He then asks our boy what he has been doing, and what are your plans now that you have entered chaos moments later. The Prime Minister processes what he just heard by repeating what he understood from Jayden's report. Basically, our protagonist was led into chaos by chance. He encountered one of the great families, and by another stroke of luck, stole his soul stones. By that same luck he entered the fortress, and continually came across stories of fights and combats that others only heard about. Our boy's most recent feat involved conveniently imitating the Divine Doctor's masterstroke against undead. The story seems highly unlikely, and the doctor wonders if the Prime Minister really believes him. Zhongyu comments that, if the Prime Minister so easily believes what Jayden is saying, he must be about the effect of being away from the fortress master for so long. The Prime Minister then asks if his physical body is alive. Jayden is astonished. He now realizes that after escaping the tower, he was essentially a spirit, so the chaos must have confused him with someone who just died, leading to this place. He is curious to know how Tiber discovered this, and since you know he's not dead, Tiber's reasoning is straightforward. No one arrives at chaos. Describes his death the way our hero described it, being brought here by something beyond his control. Tiber understands that Jayden feels threatened by someone, although he does not reveal this directly. He simply presents the feeling as uncertainty, so he apologizes for the spies he placed to gather information. However, our protagonist was already aware of each of these attempts. Live or praise for his skill. Based on his vigilance, he reveals that our boy has a SS danger rating and unknown power according to your calculations. The potential damage it can cause is estimated at around 380 million horns. Then Tiber asks if he knows what people call someone like that. Chonjio responds abruptly that a person like that is crazy, while Jayden speculates whether Jayden is a hero or a lunatic. Chever explains that some call him a hero and others a madman. He particularly calls people like Jayden of protagonists, because they all have something in common. They are famous. Iwan is confused, and Tiber points out that he is not famous in any way. Does this mean that someone is stopping him from information about our protagonist spreads to whoever is hiding their information? He doesn't do it out of kindness, since he wouldn't have had so much trouble getting into the fortress because of a trivial certificate. Shiver keeps saying that Jayden is a protagonist who ended up there by chance. It's as if our hero is running away from someone powerful, although he doesn't know who. He wonders if the Dark Master could be one of the 12 masters of the Great Kingdom next. Tiber proposes that Gorgon is willing to offer asylum and will not ask questions. However, Jayden suddenly asks if the Gorgon fortress is strong enough to resist the fury of the 12 masters. Tiber senses an opportunity and asks if it's them he's running away from. Our boy just responds that it could be one of them, which ends up being good news for Tiber, since the masters are not allowed to directly interfere in anything that happens in the chaos. So, Jayden wants to know what price he will have to pay. Tiber just wants him to save the castle lord. About 2 hours later, Chungyu, our protagonist, and a shadowy guard go down the stairs. The guard mentions that Kalfan Ravier and Mino are recovering in the infirmary, and then asks if Jayden would really prefer to stay at the training ground instead of a VIP suite. However, he wants to fight with our hero to see which is better, his sword strike or Jayden's thrust. But our boy doesn't take him seriously. Seeing Jayden's disinterest, the old man changes tactics and mentions the Tower of Experts he completed. Jayden exits and asks if he knows anything. The old man, however, doesn't reveal anything for free and says he will only talk if Jayden managing to defeat him first. Jonghyun doesn't believe that our protagonist has any chance. Winning later, Jayden guarantees a decisive victory. The doctor, however, demands another round. Jayden observes the damaged training hall as a direct result of the fight. He believes the fight is already over, but the old man tries to hand him over, claiming to have a final blow that could even kill Jayden, a blow he had been saving. The doctor, speaking from inside a hole, asks Jayden how old he is. Our protagonist responds that he is around 60 years old, and the doctor shouts, insisting that he should have some respect since Tianyu is at least 1,000 years old. He said that Jayden should at least consider that he has been practicing his scam for almost 1,000 years, compared to 60 years of Jayden practicing stabbing anyway. Our boy says, it doesn't even look like the doctor practiced for 10 years. This infuriates Tianjio, who then attacks him with another powerful blow, emerging from the hole and jumping high. His attack advances towards Jayden like a wild beast, but our hero prepares to counterattack as Iwan counters Zhang Guo's attack with his normal thrust, and both recoil after the shock. The doctor praises the movement, while our protagonist is astonished to see how comfortable his opponent has become, considering he survived even the normal Chongyu thrust taken by curiosity. He asks the name of the technique Jayden just used. He calls it a normal thrust, although Chongyu finds the name arrogant. This turns out to imply that Jayden has an even stronger technique. Our boy then reveals that he actually has a more powerful move. Yeongyu is momentarily stunned, since the technique Jayden is about to reveal reminds him of the Lone King of Chaos. He wonders if this attack could be something similar to those of true kings, and are not sure if they would be able to block it or not. As soon as Jayden prepares to strike and announces his name, Shang abruptly declares him the winner, with an insane look on his face. Meanwhile, in the 5th zone of the Great Kingdom, Unyielding Steel, the Master of Steel, Ryoyu, demands to know what the Master of Darkness is doing. Your nervous aide informs you that the Dark Master is currently in contact with chaos. Ryoyu is surprised since all the masters had agreed to stay away from the chaos. The trembling helper suggests that Ryoyu see with his own eyes. He shows images of Jayden completing the 99th floor alone. Ryoyu acknowledges having heard about the boy who defeated a tower, expert level, and assumes the story is false, but soon discovers that Jayden is a product of the Dark Master. This product did not follow the rules. He refused to finish the tutorial and start the main game instead. Breaking through the ceiling and entering chaos, the Master of Steel is curious to know how a mortal could do this. With a cultivator waiting in the cemetery to send, what catches his attention is that Jayden killed the cultivator to escape. Yoyu finds it unbelievable, but the helper insists that the Master of Darkness from the 9th Kingdom swears, so find out if this has been happening for some time. The Master of Darkness has been interfering in the chaos, and several zones have been secretly in contact with him. Curious about the actions of the 9th Kingdom, Ryoyu instructs his assistant to notify the inhabitants of chaos of his intention to visit them, although he makes it clear that he does not intend to interfere. He also orders 10 elite gold-level guards to be sent, and asks Ryoyu's own warrior to accompany them. The assistant, relieved at not having been scolded, hurries to make preparations. Meanwhile, Ryoyo thinks about Xiongyu and his reckless ways back in the training room. The old man begs Jayden not to use those attacks, going so far as to hug Dokubo in despair, and although angry, our protagonist wants the old man to drop his sword. When the Xiongyo finally retreats, he remains deeply worried, with the possibility of a coup like that having been mastered in just 40 years. Now I simply state that I have stabbed 10 billion times. Eong EU finds this ridiculous, pointing out that it would be necessary to practice 80 times per second without sleeping or resting for 40 years. However, that's not what our boy did, since he can stab 100 times a second, and he doesn't even need a sword for that. He can stab 100 people, and he is completely perplexed. And he felt something different about Jayden from the beginning, but he never realized the extent of it. It's not just his aura. Every time he stabs, it feels like every movement is filled with hatred for the world. Channeling pure fury into attack is difficult to write, but it seems that our hero is stabbing the world itself, even without a blade. The movement becoming in essence one thrust. And I already noticed Tianguo's expression, and repeat that he has already given 10 billion thrusts. After that, he shows Xiamgu the oath they signed before training. Turns out the doctor had sworn by all the pretty girls in the world. and for his own honor, he would consider it a wish for Jay1 if he beat him Zhang. I'm sure the boy will ask for something strange or peculiar, but whatever our protagonist wants is that their questions are answered. The doctor suggests that they go outside to talk. Jay1 starts by asking what a tower of experts is, both. They meet the dream demons that create these towers, and Tianjio explains the level system normally. Towers are classified between S and F, but some dream demons can build S-level towers. Even as apprentices, these individuals later become masters, known as experts. However, not all towers built by experts are classified as expert towers. Only the truly special ones, completely unrelated to cultivation, are considered as such. No one knows for sure the true purpose of these towers, but one thing is certain. Expert dream demons are curious about the true nature of the world. A small percentage, those who complete these towers, are known as Curiosity Awakens. Jaewon asks if Chongyu is one of them. The old man explains that he came from the Melville Specialist's 4th tower, a tower called Mobidic. Even in the early levels, he had to fight whales, and barely managed to survive. Many great warriors perished there. He laughs about it now. Although he admits it was a nightmare, Xiango feels that our boy also survived a tower like that. So you want to know whose tower it was that the On already conquered. He liked it, and find out if it was Mulak's. Chongyu stops walking as soon as he hears the name. He never imagined he would find an awakened one who had cleaned the Mulak tower. Now I'm curious, and asks if he knows Mulak. And Chongyu nods, as Mulak was one of his teammates. It's rare to see any show of emotion on Jaewon's face, but even he seems intrigued to learn that Chongyu walked with Lak. As the story is a bit long, Chongyu suggests that they take a walk eventually. Both end up in a tavern. The one who serves them is Claire, who becomes visibly irritated when asked if she is now running an outdoor food stall. She gets a little irritated when she sees our guy, and reminds everyone that a certain person ended his old tavern. Always observant, Jaewon. Notice details while the beer is served, a fact that does not go unnoticed by the doctor. Perceive a reality in the chaos that most people can't see. Chongyu explains why there is food in a land where no one goes hungry. Man, the original chaos was not always so dark. It was once a blessed place, a refuge, where people could escape war and live in peace, even celebrate life. Suddenly they hear men fighting, like in front of any common bar, and the doctor smiles, asking what our protagonist thinks it's happening. One suggests it's probably just drunks fighting. However, after taking a sip, you realize that there is no alcohol. Only water. Discovers that in chaos, people can't get drunk, feel hungry, or die. All they do is imitate rituals in the name of culture. In a place like this, humans still long for their past lives, for the sweetness of limits. Due to drunkenness and even pain, they began to act as if they were hungry or drunk, pretending to have living bodies and beating hearts. But that's not all. Some wanted even more. There was an expedition, famous for being called the Expedition into the Abyss in Chaos. This journey was a search for the fruit of resurrection, a prize that was said to restore true life. Is already to be astonished, and even a little interested to hear about this. The only way to obtain the fruit of the resurrection is to travel through the abyss until reaching the end of its branches. At the time the expedition began, Chongyu had already awakened and was younger by about 150 years unexpectedly. Mulak led the expedition. A flashback unfolds as Mulak talks to Chongyu, praising him for awakening without losing his emotions. John, however, is furious and even throws his sword at Mulak, insisting that demons have nothing to do with what they should stay in their rooms building towers. He is disgusted with the entire Malaki cultivation system. In turn, apologizes repeatedly for all the demons who built towers, then reveals his real reason for joining the expedition to the abyss is he wants to reach the end, finding another tower. And finally, cultivation. Xiong Yu is completely shocked. It is bizarre to hear a dream demon talk about ending cultivation, the very business they are known for, the only thing they really do. Now I ask the doctor again about what happened with the expedition. Chongyo admits that he did not go beyond the entrance to the abyss. He remained behind. Molak, however, is known to have reached the top of the Tree of Illusion, from where the fruits began to fall, allowing others to return to chaos. Jirawan wonders why the old man remains in chaos since he supposedly got the fruits. Claire returns to serve more food, and gives the doctor a meaningful look, while when he distorts the story, she explains that the expedition was never really successful. But the doctor disagrees, insisting that Claire was not there and did not witness their glory. He claims that they managed to collect the fruits, and that he is proud of it. With everything, when the patriarchs were returning, the lords of the omnipotent lands were there to take all the fruits. The masters of the fortresses and leaders of the 10 factions didn't stand a chance against the overwhelming strength of those arrogant rulers. They were no pariah for them. The fruit was recovered, stolen from them anyway. Monarchs still use the fruit when they die, and have continued to do so for over 9 centuries. Our protagonist imagines that that's why everyone looks so defeated all the time, no matter how much they pretend. They know they cannot have a real life for themselves, because the masters have claimed that right for themselves. And thinking about Mulak awakens one idea, in Jaeon's mind. Before he can ask old Chongjyo, he has already passed out. How is this possible? They were only drinking water, Claire clarifies that Chongjyo has been pretending to be drunk for 1,000 years. She then adds that Mulak has never been seen again. After that, he just disappeared, while Claire explains. James enters, eager to personally thank Jaewon for saving his captain. Our boy remains expressionless. Games even needs to introduce himself again right now. The captain of the demon extermination squad, Jari, arrives with a panicked expression. He reports that a big problem has arisen. It turns out that Jahir is there to give news about the state of the fortress master. Moments later, Jahir and Jaewon are seen traveling together towards the castle. The fortress master is hidden somewhere beneath the inner castle. Deep in the basement, Jaewon's mind immediately remembers the Prime Minister's offer. Gorgon will serve as a safe haven for him, without repercussions for the damage he caused as long as he does. Please help Mr. Jahir. Explains that you have been in critical condition with, very often lately, usually losing control about once a week. But this time the situation is different. Our protagonist already suspects that the master of the fortress, if you are turning into a living dead man, he laughs and continues, explaining that you are a good man and also a survivor of the expedition to the abyss. He's worried because Chongyu hasn't woken up yet, and he's waiting for our boy to perform the undead strike. However, all Jaewon has done so far is imitate the old man, nothing more. As soon as they arrive at the castle, they begin to feel tremors on their feet. Jari recognizes, immediately, that this is the work of the fortress master. Suddenly, they see 2 tower captains ahead, blocking your path already. Laugh. Try to explain the situation as briefly as possible, but the tower captain insists that they have orders and can't let anyone pass. Already Laugh thinks this is strange, and begins to consider who they might eventually be obeying. Realizing that they both intend to go against heaven's wishes for them, the only sky is the forbidden sky. The captains then wonder aloud, if Jaewon is able to perform the undead strike. Both captains prepare to attack, but before they can strike Jahir pushes our hero aside to protect him. Jari alone manages to deal with both captains, which impresses even our boy. Meanwhile, Jari realizes that the Golden Sky clan managed to extend its harmful influence into the castle. These 2 captains essentially represent the Forbidden Paradise clan, people he didn't know were inside the fortress. He bluntly refers to them as people. From the outer fortress, Jari tries to intimidate them, remembering their own position, but the captains insist they became stronger anyway. Jari urges them to swear loyalty to the lord of the castle again, assuring them that forgiveness will be granted. They mock him by questioning the value of the master of the fortress he is defending. According to them, whatever is locked in the heart of the castle is not the master of the fortress, but an abomination is someone who cannot control their own powers, and therefore can't control the Gorgon. They question the idea that Jari continues, associating a man who does not even understand the good with the desires of paradise, if that is the case. Maybe paradise is not the paradise they were promised, however. Has faith that you will return, which infuriates one of the captains, causing a sudden ambush. After being hit, Jari notes that 2 4-stage adapters should not be able to compete with a 5-stage adapter, like it somehow though. They continue to fight. They talk about their own growth, but Jari knows better. It's normal progress, and suddenly our protagonist plays a game, or drunk on top of Jari. The captains then want to confirm if Juan is actually the one who can perform the undead strike, using his awakened skill. Our hero listens to his inner thoughts. They doubt him, thinking he doesn't seem like an adapter. His body is smaller than theirs, and he doesn't seem to have any special abilities. The mystery in their minds is whether he can actually execute the blow. One of them even speculates that Jayden probably can't land a single punch. Just to make his point clear, our hero asks if the next punch will be enough, and then delivers a devastating uppercut, almost ripping the head off the slow captain body. Then he turns around and punches the masked captain, damaging his mask. The masked captain retaliates, but our protagonist dodges easily. Noticing the strong energy that his opponent emanates, he considers some possibilities. Perhaps they are motivated by revenge. Or maybe there is some kind of transformation taking place with everything. When you look into your eyes, sees only fear for an instant. Our hero wonders how these traitors can be scared so easily. It's almost pathetic. He finally answers the implicit question. As for whether he can pull off the hit or save the Lord, he admits he has no idea, since saving lives has never been his specialty. That's Xiangyu's job when it comes to taking lives. But it's a completely different story. Meanwhile, in the castle basement, The Prime Minister and a special agent discuss how it hasn't even been a day since the last attack, and you are already in another frenzy. The man with Chiver is the external administrator, Miron Keldergran, the master of the keep, is shown attached to the walls by pillars, with his head and face covered by long hair that morning. It had been confirmed that the undead energy had finally subsided in a flashback. Shongo is seen talking to Shiver, explaining that although Ju Wong is quite talented, he does not have the necessary experience. To execute this technique, Mino's condition was very different from that of the master. You still resist only through sheer force of will. Chongyu said that the Shiver attack could be strong enough in a month. Since knowing this, it could be possible now. Shiver suspects that there is a traitor among them since that day, and remembers a previous conversation with the Lord. At the time, there were rumors about people who could control corruption, people who were definitely not from the Nokimian clan. This was something completely new. The master insisted on checking everything personally. The Prime Minister did his best to warn him, but the Lord wanted them to put their trust in him. He didn't want the captains involved. Feeling that only he could handle it despite the risks, he was a truly great man, and knew that he had survived on the battlefield longer than anyone else, even though he lost the battle for the fruit. Even so, he felt responsible for Gorgon's well-being. In an instant, the Lord's face was proud and radiant. The next, it was horrible, consumed by corruption, or the external administrator had been with him the whole time doing. Shiver wonders if Myram had done something to the Lord back in the present. Myram advises everyone to prepare, calling it a critical moment. Shiver insists on waiting for the doctor to return, but Miran has other plans, thinking there is not enough time. All of a sudden, Shiver feels like Miran is implying that they should kill the fortress master instead of letting this comment go. Myran tries to argue that they won't be able to stop the Lord if they become complete undead. Chiver's eyes widen when Miran suggests using the undead seal. The Prime Minister is completely against it. This is a last resort to be used only after the arrival of the Divine Doctor, however. Miran believes that at least the Master's spiritual power could be preserved through the seal of the living dead, otherwise things will get out of control. Shiver remains reluctant, pointing out that they don't even possess the soul stones needed for the ritual. Myron, however, reveals that he knows the truth and tells Shiver to stop pretending. Suddenly, the captain of the Black Soul Squad enters with the soul stone he has. Can't believe it, since the Black Soul Squad is supposed to work for the cabinet of the Prime Minister. He realizes that the external administrator was betrayed, argues that the future is at stake, and that Gorgon needs it. The Black Captain presents the Soulstone box. J. Ruan Miran's Soulstone box emphasizes the need to contain the Master now, before he becomes an undead that they cannot contain if they fail. This would mean the end of Gorgon, at the hands of his own lord. The pressure now falls entirely on Shiver. He remembers the devastation a medium-sized undead once caused, and the idea of an even bigger one is terrifying. There is nothing he can do. The Master has that potential, and the Divine Doctor is not here. Stephen tries to argue one last time, noting that only the Nakmayon clan can perform the Seal of the Dead, and that they have no chance of doing it perfectly alone. But Mihan has already prepared for this, as if he had been planning for a long time. Suddenly, volunteers in somber robes and bandaged faces appear, ready to perform the undead seal. They don't seem to be from the Nakmayon clan, but Mihan reassures Shiver, saying that these people know how to perform the ritual, something absolutely sinister and wrong about it all. Not only the bandaged people, but also the speed with which they intend to imprison the spirit of the Lord. In the spiritual stone, without a clear successor to the chaos, anyone who imposed the soul stone can become the next master of the Gorgon River Fortress. Observes these bandaged individuals, handling the spiritual stone, just like the members of Jair, Juan, and Nakmyung. He becomes tense, wondering who they really are. He suddenly remembers his last conversation with the Master. Those who can control the contamination of the soul now realize that everything that is happening is not due to the delay of the Divine Doctor. Everything has been planned for at least a year and a half since the Master's soul was corrupted until now. It was all part of Myram's plan. With this realization, Chiver orders his men to arrest Myram. To his dismay, they ignore him, revealing that their loyalties have also changed. The Prime Minister understands that he was part of a conspiracy all along. Everything. In moments, Shiver finds himself on his knees, apologizing to the gentleman overcome with regret, because he couldn't do anything. The light goes out in his eyes as the ritual is about to begin. He glimpses arrows from the fortress, Master's glory days. Suddenly, the floor shakes, and the ceiling of the basement opens a huge session, collapses on most of those present, leading the way through the chaos. Jarwan, and Jahir. The Prime Minister's eyes widen in pleasant surprise when, seeing him arrive, the external administrator demands to know what is happening. Jahir immediately interrupts him, telling him to stop feigning ignorance. They are fully aware of the conspiracy of the Forbidden Sky clan. Those two captains have already confessed everything to the captains outside, expressed deep apologies to the external administrator, but before anything else can happen, their bodies suddenly explode. Already laughing in astonishment, Miran quickly removes himself from any responsibility, stating that the captains took their own lives. Jahir now clearly understands that this is not a misunderstanding. It is an open rebellion. If they do not stop the external administrator and stop the seal, these traitors' intentions will come true. Suddenly Jari is shocked to see all the swords in the room pointed at him. With Xianggui still on his shoulders, he demands an explanation. They tell him they won't let him challenge Minister Miran, the Golden Sky Clan, or the external administration. He must remain where he is until the seal is complete. It's already the An. Meanwhile, keep your composure, calling these men traitors. Even now, our boy calmly ponders the original instructions. He turns to the Prime Minister, pointing out that Shiva did not fulfill his part of the agreement, the supposed safe haven inside the fortress. It is far from safe for him. He insists on renegotiating the terms. The Prime Minister is incredulous at this turn of events, but Jairwan promises to eliminate all traitors and have the external administrator, if Shiva hands over Xiangzhou so he can resume the expedition to the abyss. His words leave everyone astonished. Michael Dregran recognizes that this must be the man who became notorious in Gorgon. Lately, the one who killed an undead, with a single blow. The rank father wants to witness Jairen's strength firsthand. He then orders all the guards to contain him. Our protagonist's eyes shine for an instant before he concentrates, delivering quick blows, his blade finding targets in all directions. Even the Shadow Captain has difficulty keeping up with the multitude of thrusts. Jairwan manages to carry out the number of strikes is overwhelming, but for now he keeps them at bay. As the crowd advances, our hero concentrates and switches from shallow thrusts to his normal jab, an improvement that immediately changes the tide of battle. For the first time, everyone witnesses the true strength of his thrusts. Destructive, he aims at Marin, who narrowly escapes the attack. Marin realizes that if he hadn't moved, he would have died right there. Blocking the blow could have saved him, but he was seconds away from death. Yet these people are nothing more than scum. In the eyes of our protagonist listening attentively, he captures the whispered conversation of Marin's men, as they consider switching to Plan B, releasing the Dark Cloud, even if it means killing everyone in Gorgon. Jalem lets out a heavy sigh. He tells Myran, who is Degran, who likes people like him, because they make it his goal to destroy this world. Much easier. Without warning, he raises his sword to the sky, and a ray of light shoots upward, illuminating the night for everyone, even the Prime Minister, who had just gotten up. Feel hope. Iva remembers the Master's last words, Da Fortaleza, about the people of Gorgon, needing a symbol of hope. Organ Shiva realizes that this must be the moment you had planned, and even he feels this hope, although the irony does not go unnoticed, as it comes from someone determined to destroy the world moments later. Myron's face, which is Dregran, is shown, and the camera moves away, revealing his severed limbs and body with his last breath. Miran insists there is no point in trying anymore, for the master of the fortress is beyond saving. Jaewon checks with Jari on Xongyu's status, and what has happened so far. No matter what they try, Xongyu doesn't wake up without patience. Our hero grabs Zongguo by his white hair and throws him against a wall, waking him up instantly. Everyone is shocked by the method. As he regains consciousness, it becomes clear that the fortress master is no longer contained and now has 99.9% contamination. Before Chongo can understand the situation, the system starts processing updates about the fortress master. After contamination reaches 99.9%, the system becomes unable to make new estimates. As everyone watches in horror, the system announces its verdict: a gigantic undead is emerging, and automatic Gorgon alerts are triggered. Warning sirens sound, and the evacuation protocol begins, with professionals rushing to get people to a safe location. However, this time, things won't be so simple. James witnesses the horrible aura emanating from the castle, the darkness and the tremors spreading, causing chills. Demon-slaying squad captain Jari is assigned to escort the Prime Minister to safety, while Jonghyun turns to Jae-won for help to clear a path. He draws his new sword, commenting that Jaeyeon's blow is too sharp to save anyone, and reminds him that he needed a new blade because the protagonist broke the old one moments later. Jaeyeon and the old man enter the world of drawing, where the doctor tries to sketch his lord, remembering moments they spent together. Memories like these prove crucial to performing, cutting, and reducing contamination. Once enough memories are gathered, Dongyu may attempt to stop the transformation's progress of the living dead. Suddenly, the doctor sees a figure that he believes being the master of the fortress, only to realize that it is not his master, but something infinitely more terrifying and insane. He freezes with sweat running down his face, as I am generally unfazed. He is also a little shaken by the old Chongyu's reaction. He is overcome by panic, The being in front of him is not the master of the fortress. Even the always calm face of our protagonist shows some confusion. Soon the body of the fortress master transforms, in a truly monstrous form, and Xiong-O finally understands the horror before him. A chilling voice echoes, the creature growls about how unexpected it is to possess this body. Since entering chaos, this being is unmistakably a master of the great kingdoms. He even recognizes Xiong as the man who went into the abyss 900 years ago. Xiong-Yu's body trembles. He knows exactly who is in front of him. The Lord of the Palace of the Living Dead, the only being capable of opening the portal to the abyss catastrophe, the lonely king of chaos. Our protagonist, on the other hand, completely unaware of the entity's true identity, suspicion only increases. He is definitely a living dead man, but at the same time, isn't it? While Jae-won watches, the supernatural being asks Chong-Yu what he has to do with the chaos. The lonely king bursts into laughter at the thought that there is still someone there to protect the world. Chong is almost paralyzed with fear, knowing that this being could destroy everything with a simple snap of his fingers. With one hand seen, the lonely king erases the entire world that Chong-Guk created. Suddenly, the king points to Jae-won, noting that he still has a human heart. Even after awakening, Jong realizes that the lonely king used his undead incarnation, taking over his lord's body, which means this is just a clone, while the real catastrophe is even more terrible. Our boy wants to know if Jong was successful with a deadly blow, as he is determined to defeat the lone king. Personally, the king hears Jae-won's whispered intention and is visibly amused by the idea of someone trying to kill him. Chong-Yu urgently warns him to reconsider, insisting that he should not even consider such an idea. After all, not even the Mulak would be capable of causing a catastrophe, even as a clone. The King of Souls is an entity that no one there can control. Despite this, Jayden remains confident that he can eliminate the creature. The king responds with a mocking and thunderous laugh, then he draws his sword, inviting our protagonist to attack him. Calling awakened with the mind of a human, Jong immediately recognizes that the clone invoked the Sword of the Void, the same weapon that decimated half the expedition at the entrance to the abyss. The king attacks Jae-won, who barely manages to dodge the blow. The lonely king observes and notices that he has seen that determined look before, concluding that Jae-won is heading towards the abyss. Ongwell is astonished. He never imagined that our protagonist would get this far. The lonely king reflects that people still seek the end of the world, but insists that Jae-won is still very weak. The King of Souls grabs his head, commenting that he is not even as strong as the Mulak from 900 years ago. Even so, Jayden frees himself by executing a movement, bold to cut off the king's arm. In his mind, our hero feels a flash of gratitude for having managed to land that blow, but immediately, a huge hand grabs him back and crushes him, killing, without retreating, our protagonist. Punch him, the king, and at close range. But in the next instant, the king tries to throw him against the ground. Fortunately, Jayden slides back, although one of his arms sustained damage. The king comments that corruption will eventually consume even the strongest, and the specialty of the Void Sword is to accelerate this destiny. Even a single touch of it can destroy centuries or millennia, corrupting someone in an instant. Surprisingly, our boy cuts his own arm to remove the contamination. The king admires his willpower, observing that only someone like him would be capable of such an act. The King of Souls then summons countless blades. Launching his attacks against Jae-won, he realizes that the sword in our hero's hand is an imitation of a Mulak's blade. Not bad, admits the king, for a mere toy created by a dream demon. The fierce battle continues, and Tiao Gai-ho tries to warn Jae-won about something while our protagonist cuts his own soul to purge more corruption. But the king warns that Jayden's soul won't last much longer. Our boy recognizes this internally, realizing that even with all his suspicions he cannot find a single weakness in the lonely king, and those strange particles continue to disturb his concentration. He remembers Shangul mentioning the White World. A special domain is a realm where he remembers those who have come and gone, bringing it back with the imagination apparently. All awakened ones have the world, thus invoked by a special keyword. When awakening a landscape shaped by their emotions and desires, the stronger the alarm clock, the more beings are suddenly attracted to that world. Jae-won has an idea. His eyes widen. While he conjures his own world through oblivion, Izagairo observes in awe, recognizing that Jaeon's world is a literal hell, a hell born of pure hatred and fury. A gigantic eye appears in the sky, above the lonely king. The king recognizes that this ideal world of Jae-won, it's quite fascinating now that our protagonist has the upper hand and the particles that previously clouded his mind. They stopped bothering him, but the clone remains terribly powerful. He grabs Jaeon with his tentacles and pins him to the ground. The king comments that our boy has been launching random attacks, fighting without thinking. He approaches Jaeon to provoke him before hitting him again. The ground cracks and shatters with the force of the impact. After a while, the lone king stands over our hero, trapping him with his foot. He notes that Jayden still clings to his hatred, and admits that he hasn't met someone like that in a while, unfortunately. Decides it's time to end everything. The Sword of the Void rises, ready to hit Jayden's face, when suddenly our boy's eyes open in a sudden movement. Jayden manages to land one of his most effective attacks yet, brandishing his sword and almost splitting the king in half. Standing up, our protagonist announces that he is not yet ready for the end. This declaration only enrages the king even more. It doesn't matter. No matter how decisive Jayden's blow is, the king always manages to metamorphose into something even more terrifying. After being divided in two, the monstrous figure undergoes new mutations, growing even larger. For a while, our boy is overpowered, barely surviving as he wields his sword and fights. Clinging to the brink of destruction, the king now wants details. He asks why. Jayden is so determined to reach the abyss. Deep down, the King of Souls is curious about the boy's purpose. He saw countless people light up higher and higher to create their own paradises, build a better world, or simply satisfy curiosity for some reason. The king is obsessed with unraveling Jayden's question, amidst the relentless attack with our hero struggling to get up again and again. This question remains in the air when the king launches a blow from the void that Jayden manages to block. He seems to understand. Perhaps pondering Jayden's own question is the world itself. The king continues trying to investigate further, questioning what really motivates our boy would be destruction, annihilation, extermination. Those would be good hypotheses, especially considering the nature of their moonlit ideal world. With everything, Jayden seems to be someone in search of the end. Someone who needs to understand, because something like the Tree of Illusion deserves to exist. Our protagonist, however, claims ignorance. He has no idea what the clone is slowing down. The clone is confused, realizing that Jayden doesn't seem to be investigating, no specific question. Meanwhile, our hero recognizes something familiar in this situation. Suddenly remembering his fight with Be Strange, everything makes sense. The king is just a clone, occupying the body of the fortress, Master Beauty. Acting on this perception, Jayden pushes the king back and throws him against the ground. The clone emerges again without showing any sign of tiredness despite the lone king's fury. Soon, however, Jayden focuses on the foreign particles, and with the help of his suspicion technique, discovers his next move. When jumping upwards, he notices a wire connecting to the king's main body. Taking advantage of the moment he strikes his blow, the king recognizes the movement. The fissure technique. Finally, our hero aims at the monster's weak point and delivers a decisive blow to the body, the main, eliminating his opponent in his final moments. The lonely king promises to find Jayden at the entrance to the abyss. After the battle, our protagonist finds himself leaning against a destroyed wall, while the body of the fortress master rests peacefully in the water. Jayden becomes incapacitated, thinking to himself that he needs to become stronger with his thrusting and piercing blows, have proven effective against weaker opponents, but when facing a powerful being, he is unable to gain an advantage with just his thrust. The damage radius is simply very limited. His signature strike in battle, the thrust, it was only useful to distract the king's clone. Realizing that he can no longer depend on this technique, our boy knows he needs something much more powerful to face real villains in the future. After the battle, Chongyu is pulled out of the rubble, while our protagonist continues his self-analysis. Replaying the fight, in his mind, he finally stands up looking at the fortress master. In his final moments, the dying master gestures for him to come closer despite being undead. The elder witnessed the remarkable courage shown by Jayden and wishes to reward him with a fragile grip. He holds the arm injured by the void blade, telling him that Gorgon is about to undergo changes. Our hero is perplexed until the master transfers something to him. A light emanates from the old man's hand, wrapping Jayden's arm and healing the master of the fortress with his last words. Recognizes a familiar power in our boy. The warmth of cherished memories. He urges us to never forget what it means to be human, and then passes away peacefully soon after. The Prime Minister and James notice Jayden approaching. Is there something different? They see the spiky dragon pattern now engraved on his arm, as our protagonist returns, sword in hand. Those who await him instinctively kneel shiver, accepting this as the ancient masters will kneel. Finally, everyone recognizes Jayden as the new master of Gorgon Fortress. 2 days later, the castle's damaged sections are being rebuilt into its new office. Jayden sits at the main table talking on the phone with the Prime Minister. Now he calls him Master of the Fortress. It's clear he doesn't want anything to do with the position, but Jurgen Shiver has a plan B. He presents the terms of the promise they signed, showing that our boy is bound by a contract. It's already evil. You can believe it, questioning whether you really should take responsibility. By the death of the old master, although the old one was gone and the new one survived, this should have ended the matter with everything. Our hero must now fulfill the contract, protecting himself as the master of the fortress. He asks Jayden if he can delegate responsibilities or hand over the title to someone else, as he is determined to climb the abyss and reach the top of the Tree of Illusion. River explains that it is not possible. Gorgon would not accept such a move. Realizes he is referring to the tattoo on his arm. The only way, there will be a new master of the fortress. That's when the old one dies angry. Our protagonist observes a thick pile of papers. Your first tasks land on your desk, courtesy of the Prime Minister. Gorgon adds even more, hoping he memorizes the Constitution as he walks between the documents. Now I can find laws that prohibit any negative comments about the Master of Fortaleza, or false advertising, or what explains the silence since your arrival before leaving. Jayden suggests that our boy check the desk drawer. He opens it, and finds a rolled-up piece of paper left for the keep's 17th master before he can unroll it. The paper turns into a speaking figure, an origami that comes to life. The message begins with congratulations and is addressed to him, as the new fortress master, whoever he is, the origami king, offers unexpected advice. Don't stress about being the delegate whenever possible. Let the internal minister, the prime minister or external administrator, takes care of matters as long as the councils make the decisions. The main thing is to have fun if you can. All Jayden can think is that the fortress masters look like spoiled lords, but there is more than that. The message is not just from his predecessor, but from all 16 previous masters. Glimpses of an overworked and partially corrupted ancient master emerge, writing to whoever came after, not out of laziness, but out of survival. The central message: don't be greedy, don't make unnecessary changes. People just need stability. One way to keep moving and survive a little longer is now. Repeatedly listen to the advice. Don't fall in love too much, don't make drastic changes, and don't get carried away by stress. The work of the Fortaleza Master is not to create a world for a few, but let the majority continue. You've watched the video so far and haven't subscribed to the channel until now. What's that? You're wavering. Huh, come on, my son signs up to make me very happy, huh? And living suddenly, our boy steps on paper embedded with the spirits of past masters. He realizes that their collective purpose, it was just keeping life, as it was never aiming for anything more, just a supervisor keeping things as they were. But that's not his plan. He calls Jayden, the curious minister, and asks what he is thinking. The answer surprises him. Jayden wants to eliminate the position of master of the fortress, completely. Jayden is perplexed, so our protagonist asks what the fortress means to him. Jayden answers honestly, it is a military fortress that protects its people. Exactly, says Jayden. But what if there were no more enemies? The idea doesn't make sense to Jayden. There are always Gorgon enemies anyway. Our hero proposes a world where the fortress no longer needs to exist. Jayden cannot understand the thought. It seems impossible, but our protagonist believes otherwise. As the new master of the fortress, he is determined to unite the chaos. There are no funerals in the chaos instead. Farewells are called soul farewell processes. The ritual serves to send those who have already left. Unlike funerals that categorically remember the dead, this farewell is designed to erase them. It is an event where they get together and discuss everything about the soul of the deceased, and then make a point of never thinking about them again. The Prime Minister soon mentions the name of Emil Grahashki, reflecting on the memories he left behind. There is no burial in chaos, as everyone ends up becoming food for the Tree of Illusion. So instead of vowing to never forget the custom, it is to promise to forget Emil Grahashki during this week of the soul's farewell process. They will talk about him for the last time until there is nothing left to say. Ironically, this is the first time Jayden heard the name of the former fortress master. Although everyone views him with skepticism, it is understandable as someone who has not even lived 100 years. He can be called the master of the fortress. Some suspect that he says in Shiver he is playing politics. Others think that this must really be the end of an era, when suddenly their thoughts are interrupted by a veiled lady, who tries to meet his gaze, but a vigorous old man reaches him first. The old man greets the new master of the fortress, while Xiongguo talks to the lady who reveals herself to be the priestess of the Faith Clan. Xiongguo observes that the elder of the Servant Clan arrived at the meeting before it. They are not the only ones. Everyone is openly discussing which side will they choose when the time comes, and Onggyo is not worried about alliances. Now, the elder of the Servant Clan, however, she wants to know Jayden's age when she hears that he is only 60 years old, jumps to a lot of hasty conclusions. Maybe the old master had a son, or maybe there is some secret institution that has produced this newly arrived personal attention. Is not the kind of question one would ask the fortress master, especially since the elder. You already know how our protagonist ended up in chaos, but he still extends his hand as a sign of cooperation. This is Zhang and Han, vice leader of the servant clan in your mind. He notes that the new leader doesn't even seem like an adapter, something he plans to use to his advantage. Ilhan remembers being stopped by a stubborn inspector at the north gate. Sir, Calton Raviere had detained him for causing trouble. The master of the fortress at the time considered him a nuisance, mainly because he tried to, entering illegally and violating internal rules. Ilhan was embittered by their stubbornness, a feeling that persisted for a decade. Now he wants to exploit the opportunity created by the deceased fortress master and the then captain Ravier. Still recovering, Ilhan acts quickly when shaking Jair Juan's hand. It transports our protagonist to the highest level of the illusion skill, the 8 gates of hell. Instantly, Jair Juan finds himself trapped in a hell, facing a fierce fire dragon. Meanwhile, in reality, people notice his strange behavior, realizing that on his first day, the new master of the fortress was ensnared by the most powerful illusion, courtesy of Ilhan, who doesn't care about Jair Juan's youth. With everything, before Ilhan even manages to build his dream palace, it shatters. While waiting for Jair Juan to go crazy in hopes of forcing negotiations to get his help, our boy simply jokes about how to shake hands amidst the chaos. They are strange. The old man is speechless, having tolerated enough. Jair Juan calmly announces that it is his turn to greet Ilhan, takes his hand and drags him to the moon's eye world. In seconds, Ilhan is on his knees, screaming as if he had seen hell itself, while the others watch in confusion. Then Juan could easily execute him. But I leave it there for now, so he can reflect on his actions. Chong Rio is disappointed. He wanted to see some real action. The priestess, the spectators, and the crowd. They don't know what to think of this new master of Fortaleza. Soon it's time for the inaugural speech. The Prime Minister prepares the pulpit, amplifying Jair Juan's voice with magic. It's his turn to address the masses. He starts strong by admitting he doesn't know who Emma or Grashevsky was, what he accomplished, or whether he was a good master. He confesses that he is not the right man for them, without spiritual energy, without experience, nothing to recommend him other than luck. He clarifies that it was not even his intention to take on the position. They don't want him as a leader, and conveniently, he doesn't want to be one either. He explains that, after 30 seconds of reflection, he came up with a solution. Anyone who defeats him in combat will receive the title of Master of the Fortress. Some in the crowd instantly cheer at this, especially Cayman, leader of the South Sea clan. But there is a catch. Only those who face it within a month will be eligible, and after that, the offer expires. Yet another turn around. Anyone who loses to it will automatically join your Abyss Expedition Squad, leaving within 2 months. The crowd, including Priestess Ilhan Jahir and Chong Hao, remains in shock. At the unexpected announcement, the Prime Minister had accepted Jair Juan as the master of the fortress. The moment he saved the Gorgon from the Forbidden Clan, even when he considered renouncing the title of Lord of the Castle or joining Chaos, his conviction remained. Jurgen felt uneasy when our boy took the stage, but in the end I would never put Gorgon's future at risk in the meantime. Some speculate that the new fortress master may be from the Resurrection Palace, with no clue as to how he suddenly took office. The crowd gathers at the entrance to the castle, forcing James to fight to maintain order. Jahir then informs the Prime Minister about Chong Hao's recent interview, in which Chong Hao stated that, even if all 10 clans came together, none would be able to defeat Jair Juan. The minister remains paralyzed in his room, spilling tea from cup while processing the news moments later. An angry Prime Minister storms the Fortress Master's office upon entering, finds piles of abandoned documents and wonders how long our protagonist intends to postpone their responsibilities. However, instead of Jair Juan, he is received by being Calton Ravier, still recovering at the table. The upset minister wonders what Calton is doing there, since he should be hospitalized in the meantime. Our hero is elsewhere, blowing up statues. As part of his training, they observe various versions of Calton, immortalized in stone, and seeing them destroyed seems like a waste. Shang Rao, always practical, calculates the lost fortune. These artifacts are very valuable in chaos. He could have easily impressed someone with them. Suddenly, Giraud mentions the old man who is working on a new technique, immediately squeezing Chong's interest. As soon as the fortress master prepares his sword to demonstrate the attack, earning Chong Hao's admiration even during preparation, it's as if he's about to imitate one of Chong Hao's legendary moves. The old man then jokingly suggests that the attack be called the Chong Hao lunge in honor, but warns that if he insists, Jair Juan may end up making a name for himself by attacking him before Shang Rao can reprimand him. For such an absurd idea, Jair Juan launches the attack. The old man is astonished, unable to believe that the master of the fortress actually hit him. It seems that since the boy took the position, he lost what little self-control he had left with everything. The attack doesn't hit Chong Rao. Instead, the lightning hits the Lightning God clan leader. Wang Yang, who was lurking nearby, ready to ambush them. A flashback reveals that Wang Gian was asking about the whereabouts of the new fortress master. As soon as he discovered the training camp, he planned to attack and claim the title for himself, preferring murder to a fair duel. In his mind, such an approach still counted as an individual attack moments later. Upon regaining consciousness, Wang Guan finds himself face to face with the master of the fortress. And the divine doctor, he is shocked to see Chong Rao present, confused with the situation. The ambitious wreck of lightning didn't even recognize the fortress master, surprised to discover it was the black-haired man. Next to Chong Hao, the old man points out Wang Yong's cunning nature while introducing Jai Wan. But Wang Yong feigns ignorance, insisting that he has never met either of them. Yet, something in our protagonist bothers him. Even so, with the fortress master present there, Wang Yong stands up and declares that he will return soon to challenge Wan. Once again insisting that this meeting does not count as a defeat, the irony does not go unnoticed. He accuses the fortress master of cowardice, even after he attempted an ambush. Shang Rao can only marvel with the boy's audacity, but Jairon doesn't care much, ready for another fight, if necessary. Soon Wang Guan charges his lightning, preparing for battle. While the fortress master prepares his weapon as usual, his opponents always attack first, and Irwan dodges his blows with ease, and the man is impressed by how quickly with which our hero dodges, warning that nothing, not even the fastest, can compare to lightning, or at least that's what he believes. After several exchanges of blows, Xian notices that the fortress master remains flat. Finally, he resorts to the lightning god's attack, but before he can complete it, Jair Wan coldly observes that channeling all that energy into a single blow is very slow. As the fortress master prepares his own move, the next thing you see is the Anjan, sitting with a bump on his head, swearing to spread the rumor that Jay Wan barely managed to defeat the leader of the Lightning Clan. Although it is comic relief, it is also a calculated move to keep his reputation intact. Shang Rao recognizes the opportunity. Stronger opponents will now be attracted to face the fortress master, which is exactly what they expect, and it took Junjun 100 years to reach his current position. The Yu family, one of the 5 great families in the kingdom, considered him one of their members, but only as a slave. Was Yong one of those unfortunate souls who conquered a tower, only to remain slaves for the rest of their lives? Most of their friends were not as lucky. Many were sold, died on the battlefield, or perished as slaves, but he still survived for a century. Eventually, he was promoted to servant, but that wasn't enough. This wasn't the life he imagined for himself. After demonstrating loyalty for 100 years and choosing treason, he betrayed his trust. Looting the library tomb of the family Yuam, it was there that he acquired the art of the lightning god. Later, the price for freely using the secret knowledge of the lightning god. It was clear he was hunted for 20 years, and finally, killed as a traitor. Yet the expressions that Yong now wears, even in the midst of chaos, they are much happier than those he had as a slave. It seems that all the suffering was worth it when he was summoned to chaos and ascended to the rank of 9th of the 10 clans. For him, it was a great deal with everything. The frustration of seeing someone less than 100 years old become master of the fortress. It's real. The scene returns to Yong, who protests, saying that none of this makes sense. How Huan could become the master of the fortress. Chun Hyo agrees. It seems absurd. Yong's confusion is understandable. He is even more perplexed to see Chun Hyo, a veteran of the Great Expedition, facing everything with. So naturally, how can a veteran like him just stand still, smiling in the face of such a situation? Chun Hyo, however, is more interested in congratulating Yong for finding our protagonist before despair overtook him. He acknowledges that Yong's asceticism is justified, but quickly points out that if Yong wants to understand, you should know that the Golden Cell clan attacked the Gorgon just a week before Yong's arrival. This revelation finally captures our boy's undivided attention. Chun Hyo describes how during the attack, their own clan members turned against them. At that critical moment, with the King of Souls descending into the body of Emil Grichaski, it seemed like all hope was lost, since Irhan was the one who saved them. Yong is stunned, completely embarrassed for not knowing this. Before attempting murder is a bold admission, coming from someone who just tried to attack from the shadows while they were talking. Someone breaks into the training camp, eager to challenge the master of the fortress, and is the formidable leader of the Fire King's clan. Kang Wang, accompanied by Cayman, leader of the South Sea clan, both candidates for the title of Master of the Blood Fortress. Huan insists on going first, but our hero doesn't want to disappoint either of them, because arguing about who goes first invites them to attack together, a classic first impression of the fortress master. Even so, he uses his haste and is eager to resume his training. New technique. Chun Hyu, watching from afar, can only slap his forehead. Anticipating a chaotic day ahead, Kang Wan advances alone. The resulting fire spectacle is impressive. and the Fire King's skill is undeniable, but he can't land a single blow right after. Chunhyo's frustration is evident as he surveys the now charred training ground, silently blaming Jair Huan for the mess. The highlight of the duel comes when their swords clash, and Kang Huan is convinced that our protagonist fears his blade, but Jair Huan thinks that the leader of the impetuous clan, he should worry more about himself. With a smile, the master of the fortress delivers a powerful thrust, jokingly asking if Kang Huan is afraid of his own blow. The attack is exaggerated. Kang Huan is thrown against the wall, breaking it, and this means trouble for Chung Ryo, who will now have to explain the disaster to the Prime Minister. The master of the fortress himself is not at all satisfied, since I had specifically asked Kang Huan and Kama to attack together, but this did not match with the sense of honor of a warrior. In addition, the Kamen hates the heat. What a coincidence. Huan's day started with a lightning user, then moved on to a fire-type warrior, and now he faces one water type, but our boy feels he is one step ahead of the others. For the first time he takes the initiative, which is unusual for him. Kamen blocks the attack directly, keeping calm. A characteristic that our protagonist considers unique. Kaimon stands out. He's not trying to show off or dominate, just maintain control when Kaimon finally hires. Huan quickly dodges and jumps from above. The leader of the South Sea clan barely manages to dodge, and immediately admits defeat. Our hero feels a little disappointed that Kaima didn't demonstrate his full strength, but Kaima doesn't mind that brief training session. He knows he wouldn't have the slightest chance. He is one of the smartest, but focused on the expedition into the approaching abyss, then winning a fight while in. The leader of the Fire Clan and the leader of the Lightning Clan start arguing about who lost worse. Chunryo quickly intervenes, reminding everyone to focus on the true meaning of their defeats. The South Sea leader, on the other hand, remains impassive. He never came to win a fight. His only interest is the expedition to the abyss. It turns out he was a friend, close to the last master of Fortaleza, Emil Grocheski, and wanted to have participated in the expedition to the previous abyss, but he wasn't strong enough at the time. He confides in Chun, laughs, that witnessing the previous failure firsthand or made him desperate to participate this time. Junior then loudly questions Kang's decision. Huan, leading the Fire King to declare his participation in the expedition. He knows he has no other choice after the defeat. At that moment, Junjun runs up to our protagonist, only for Junjun to start scolding him. As the boy raises his sword, Junjun unexpectedly kneels and swears loyalty. Jair Huan finds this a little disturbing, and tells him to calm down, but Yunyun continues her declaration of absolute devotion. Even if it costs him his own life, the irony does not go unnoticed considering he is already dead. Unable to argue, and one simply begs to be accepted even as captain. Promising not to steal any skills and begging for one position, Jung laughed, then asked what will happen to his clan, and one responds that the Thunder God clan no longer exists. In the chaos, there are only 7 members left, including himself. Just a week, his entire clan was decimated. One mentions that his clan was defeated. Just a week ago, Chunryo wants to clarify the situation. The clan of the Lightning God was annihilated, and one fled to Gorgon, and by coincidence, the master of the fortress announced an open challenge for the title, and someone decided to fight lost miserably, and now helplessly be accepted by the fortress master, and a scene with the head. Excited. Chun laughed but is intrigued. He wonders how such crucial news came so late, especially since Manticore and Gorgon are not that far apart. A week should have been enough for the news to spread, before they can reflect on it, and one realizes that the others have no idea what is really going on. He asks Chunghyo to repeat how our boy saved him. Chunghyo Hitera, that the clan is the Golden One tried to overthrow the Gorgon. You can say these words. He to a new understanding emerges. The same traitors from the Golden Sky who attacked Gorgon must have been behind the ambush. The Lightning God clan. He wants to confirm his suspicions and discovers that the clan, Lightning God, was not the only target. The operation was much more systematic. While the level 3 Black Forest clan, as the highest level Celestial Dragon clan, were also destroyed, Kang Wan, Kamen and Chungguo immediately understand the implications of the entire Manticore fortress. Fell into the hands of the Golden Sky clan. The snow of confusion begins to dissipate, only blocking all communication. Would it be possible to suppress such widespread news? The Manticore's fortress must have sealed all the channels. The leader of the Fire clan struggles to process this. Essentially, Ian is explaining that 3 of the 10 clans were overthrown overnight, allowing the Forbidden Heaven clan to take control. Worse still, they also took control of the communication system, manipulating messaging abilities to suit his needs. Kamen is also astonished, but begins to put the pieces of the puzzle together. He had already heard rumors that the Forbidden Sky clan was accumulating power for something big. To take the Manticore stronghold in just a few years is a shock. Meanwhile, our protagonist is silently analyzing the details that are particularly interested in the connection between clan position and strength. He notes that the lower the clan rank number, the stronger it is, and an unimpressed comments that it took all this time for the master of the fortress to discover this. Realizing his mistake, he quickly bows an apology, hoping not to offend Jae-won. Chong-gil can only marvel that any of them survived, so, for a long time, the functioning of fortresses begins to become clearer. There are 4 Gorgon manticores, Dryad and Garuda, each ruled by one of the 10 clans. Our hero at least knows this. But one explains that the clans are not equal. They are classified from 1 to 10, with level 1 being the strongest, and level 10 the weakest for everyone. It is shocking that the Lightning God clan, 9th place, the Dark Forest clan, 3rd place, and especially the first-ranked Heavenly Dragon clan, have been defeated by the Forbidden Heaven, supposedly the weakest 10th place nature. The supernatural nature of it all makes Young suspect that there is a powerful backstop behind this sudden invasion. While the conversation turns to the plains of the Forbidden Sky, Yuan dives into deep thoughts. Initially, he believed that his antics were limited to the kidnapping of Dream Ivan, but now it is clear that they went much further, attacking Gorgon, taking Monty and Kor, and pursuing goals eerily similar to our boys. The destruction of this world. He wonders if they hid the mare in Monty Kor Fortress, remembering Jania's refusal. In revealing the location of the mare even after being decisively defeated, it is clear that Jania fears someone, preferring silence or even death to revealing the truth. The scene changes abruptly. A figure rests on a throne, surrounded by severed heads scattered at his feet. This is the brutal first appearance of Ling Jin Hong. The leader of the Forbidden Heaven clan, Ling Jin Hong, is soon informed by his men that the leader of the Celestial Dragon clan has been captured and is now in prison. He also receives news about the leader of the Black Forest clan, who still resists. Jim Hong throws his knife at one of the corpses for fun, laughing at their useless efforts. It won't be long before they dominate this faction as well. He is a little more interested in what happened to the leader of the Lightning God clan, where his men respond that they haven't captured him yet. And suddenly a knife is thrown into your shoulder because of this news, trying to control the pain. The man apologizes to the clan leader, who acts as if he doesn't care, and then asks about the whereabouts of the leader of the Lightning clan. After the annihilation of his entire clan, another man reports on the situation of the Gorgona. Jin Hong reflects on this for a moment. He heard about this new lord of the castle, who decided to hold a competition for the title, coming to arouse interest in ideas such as the expedition to the abyss. He comments, "How insane is it that someone is still interested in the expedition even now in the midst of chaos?" He also mentions how the clan leaders may have joined forces after the fall of Monty Kor, although this isn't too scary since they were always in small numbers even during the fall of Monty Kor. Now, the great loss is that of Myhan Kelder Gran, who worked hard to gather the foundation stones, and now he's gone. Even someone like Jin Hong knows that taking on the responsibilities that the first elder had on his shoulders is likely to encounter the Dark Master. Monarch of Absolute Darkness is no joke. It's hard to believe that someone so inexperienced can defeat the great Jin Hong. Turn on your screen and research this new master of the Gorgon Fortress. Upon observing more closely, he realizes that the face seems somewhat familiar to him as he discovers that the name of the new master of the fortress is Jae-won. A giant message suddenly appears on the screen, and he almost goes into a frenzy. Upon receiving a message from the Dark Master, the Master asks him to look for the fugitive product. Jim Hong thinks it's stupid if someone like the Master couldn't handle such an out-of-control product. How would the members of Chaos manage it? Anyway, he orders his men to transmit the message that they will continue looking for the product. After reflecting a little, he comments, "How strange it is that a product can escape a tutorial. Something unprecedented. Not to mention the product killed a cultivator while it was still in the tutorial. So, it throws another dagger in the face of the man who had already injured Killing." Jin Hong asks his other informant if all this makes sense to him. The informant shakes his head negatively. Then he asks what they should do about the Lord of the Thunder God clan. Jin Hong didn't give a damn in his mind what happened. It turned out for the best. All the clan leaders gathered stupidly on the Gorgon roof. When they found out that the position of Master of the Fortaleza was up for grabs, it was quite simple. Now they have only one target to focus on. In their quest to unify the chaos, he suddenly focuses on the death of Emo. Grechesk. When he hears an extreme evil wave coming from the castle grounds, he has no doubt that this was nothing less than the catastrophe of the Soul King. It is known that the energy of a catastrophe soon dissipates, but now they have new information. They now know that the dead, living beings can summon other undead, and Hong declares that those in Gorgon still have no idea of the powers of a catastrophe, and laughs maniacally at the conversation between our heroes. Revolves around the Forbidden Seal clan and who could be behind it. It only makes sense if one of the 12 masters of the all-powerful Earth is involved. Although Yunyang has a very valid argument that the masters should not interfere in the chaos since they made a pact regarding it. Even he knows that no one other than the 12 masters could rival the 10 Kanghyun clans. On the other hand, you heard that the all-powerful Earth is now a battlefield, and that someone can obviously take control of the situation by intervening in the chaos. Due to attention focused elsewhere, Kanghyun thinks Prudente should first contact the Resurrection Palace, the place where all the fruits of chaos went, and where the monarchs obviously reside. What is happening means the treaty has been broken. Even Seong-oh agrees with it. Kang-hyun defends the idea that they should report what happened to the Resurrection Palace. Kamen doesn't like the idea of trying to ask the bastards from the Resurrection Palace for help. He gives a wise opinion. Considering they don't even know if everyone is involved in this, you wouldn't stand a chance. If the entire Resurrection Palace were conspiring to break the treaty simultaneously, it was up to Jae-won and Chong-yo to decide Manticore Fortress has already fallen. If they proceed with the necessary actions, it would mean an all-out war. What Zhang Yu thinks is simple. They will have to face certain people. Eventually a flashback shows Shiver and Xiong Yu talking about the fortress master position being open, and Jae-won's true purpose, which is to unite chaos in a way that the position of master of the fortress, not even necessary. Shangil thinks that our boy's ideas of uniting chaos, the 10 clans are completely ridiculous, and the 4 fortresses are nothing compared to the Resurrection Palace. And despite their merits, our protagonist, or any other member of the chaos, he is too weak to face them. He shouldn't even dream of facing the Resurrection Palace, much less plan to do everything alone. But the new master of the fortress knows this and does not intend to do everything alone. That's probably why he brought Chongjio with him. When he hears this, Chongjio's mouth drops open. He can't believe Jae-won included in such a ridiculous plan. It was obvious. From the beginning, our protagonist is the inexperienced one, while Chong-guo, with his 1,000 years of wisdom, should serve as his advisor. Furthermore, the elder never explicitly said that he would not participate. Chong-guo feels perplexed that this 60-year-old boy is ordering him around with a simple word game. Now, our boy decides it's time to clarify everything. For others, his top priority is not the expedition to the abyss. Everything else comes after uniting the chaos under a single flag. For this, he needs dedicated people by his side, true comrades. The imam soon raises a question, and if no one is willing to go with him, Jailun remains silent for a moment, then responds that he will do it alone. If necessary, I need Kamen. However, thinks this is impossible with everything our hero. He simply states that he got here on his own. Kamen bursts into laughter, finding the situation funny, so he steps forward and declares it to be in the Resurrection Palace. On the expedition to the abyss, or even to the end of the world, he will follow him, and Non agrees. Kangwon, however, remains strangely quiet. They want to know his position, but he hasn't spoken out. They discover he hasn't decided yet. Everyone looks at him perplexed, but he explains that he is the only rational one among them for Kangwon to join. If Jawon is now a sign of lack of information, they barely know the man, and yet they are so willing to swear loyalty. In your mind, Kangwon, sincerely, does not believe that our protagonist is guaranteed to lead the largest expedition. He observes the situation, unfolds and proposes a solution. If the other 3 Gorgon leaders recognize Jae-won as their leader, he's willing to do the same. That's fair. Yuan at least agrees with Kang Hyung's logic. However, he has his own condition if he wants their recognition. Each of them must also be recognized by him. The others don't quite understand what our boy means, and they ask him to explain better. He reveals his plan. He wants a tournament, with clan leader titles on the line. If they make it to the quarterfinals, he will recognize them. But that's not all. He also intends to test them after granting this recognition. Kang Won doesn't seem very convinced, but Kamen understands the reasoning. Being a leader among the 10 great clans doesn't make someone automatically the strongest of chaos. Is perfectly. It is reasonable for the fortress master to select those most worthy of being at his side. Suddenly, the doors of the training ground open, and a dark shadow with an imposing aura enters. It's just the furious prime minister holding up scrolls. With this, it is clear that the plan is already underway, and the document in his hands announces that the preliminaries for the Gorgon tournaments start at 6 o'clock. The prime minister is tense and furious, knowing that, regardless of the fortress master's ambitions, the current situation has turned into something much more chaotic for the people of Gorgon. The outer fortress is already full. All the determined competitors have gathered, believing themselves worthy. James is having a lot of difficulty with identity checks, which have become one of the most challenging tasks. Lately, shortly after the internal council meets, Sorkel Tom Raviere considered that the prime minister must not be satisfied with recent events. In fact, Jurgen doesn't even hate the idea itself. It's just that everything that's happening now goes against tradition. Sorkeltum suggests that, in times when the majority is on their side, perhaps decisions can be made without formal meetings. Ironically, the majority is already supporting the Master of Fortaleza. It makes sense. Among the Inner Circle members, 3 of the 5 are newbies, as 4 of the 5 tower leaders were killed during the attack by the Forbidden Sky clan, and the only survivor was left disabled. The new appointees are younger and inexperienced. To the Tower of Finance, already go to the Tower of Security, and Sorkel Tom Javier, now leading the Tower of Law. The proposal was automatically approved due to this change. The Prime Minister thinks, disconcerting that a tavern owner who is just a second-tier adapted player can serve as Finance Minister. Claire responds by pointing out that she hardly expects the Prime Minister to approve the Lord's policies, but that these policies are generating value. Cheever seems confusing, leading. Claire asks if he despises her for running a tavern. He quickly denies it, but she explains her reasoning. The more people enter Gorgon, the more money will come in. Clara then notes that the tournament will be held in the North Outer Fortress, which was devastated by the Golden Sky clan's attack, or Forbidden Sky. With all the damage was mitigated. Thanks to the foresight of the Master of the Fortress, he hired the very people who lived there to rebuild infrastructure as they prepared for the tournament. Their final point, what she calls the nail in the coffin, is the financial loss caused by the 1,287 billion Horn Forbidden Seal clan. However, Claire informs the Prime Minister that the projected revenue is 13.28 billion horns, and that she intentionally set this lower limit to ensure they recoup their investment. After the recent losses, it is in Jurgen's shock. Clara immediately understands what he is thinking. As someone with no experience in government finance knows all this, she reveals that she has dealt with money, both in his previous life and in the afterlife, so his credentials are solid. Guys admit they have no idea what the Master of Fortaleza will do in relation to the expedition, the Union of Chaos, or even the challenges he announced in the training camps. What she knows, however, the steps that take place are simple. Teen is giving, are about to change chaos forever. In the southern chaos, the Great Sea becomes Dryad. The southern fortress Dryad, a beast guarding the plant type, forms a natural fortress with its branches and secretions, using water from the Great Sea to sustain itself. Islandcraft, playing distractedly with one of Fortaleza's vineyards, realizing that something is wrong. This is the master of the Fortress Dryad Islandcraft herself. Using her advanced reconnaissance skills, she discovers that the undead are moving towards the Gorgona, and soon notices the presence of one of the 3 great undead, Magritte, a colossal creature that walks backwards, advancing towards the Gorgona. The monster's huge red eyes even make Issa shudders, breaking her concentration. She knows she needs to alert her master. From Gorgona Fortress, immediately, in seconds, a messenger, Owl, is sent to Gorgona. Meanwhile, back to Gorgona, the tournament officially starts in a Colosseum arena. In just 3 days, the competition reached the quarterfinals. Among the particularly intrigued viewers is Shimaguchi, the leader of the Unlimited clan. This tournament proved to be dynamic and extremely fun. Chongo, appearing in the background, comments that the speed is due to the high level of competence of the participants. Evidently, the two have a history together. Suddenly, Shunho's eyes widen when he looks at Shin. The clan leader seems much stronger than in their last encounter. Shin, and realizes the same. What Chunho can't understand is why Shin didn't participate given his strength. Shin explains that he sees this as mere dogfighting and prefers real combat. Chunho mocks, pointing out that a clan leader like Kang Hyun is already the scene changes for Kang, who is performing impressively with flames almost engulfing his opponent. Suddenly, his opponent in armor and cloak jumps from above, defeating the spectators are astonished, able to believe that Kang was eliminated so abruptly. Shin and Chongho find this strange, until Chongho recognizes the technique used, the Steel Monarch's blue cloud, mystical move. Does this mean that this fighter is one of the warriors of Radius U? The implication is Clara. The Monarchs are interested in this tournament and got involved. With this decisive match, the round of 16 comes to an end, and the quarterfinals are about to begin. Shin wonders why the tournament is being so rushed, but the answer is simple. John's friend, Ho, the master of the fortress, is just impatient by nature. Soon the crowd erupts in applause for the Savante clan, and a man in a distinctive white uniform and a tunic with just appears. The chants reveal that this is Jaigumi, the leader of the Savan clan and main advisor, military of chaos, like all the others he knows. Shan Ho, and winks at the elder in greeting. Shan Ho did not appreciate the gesture, but decided to wait until the end of the tournament. To talk about it, Shin suggests letting it go, saying that it's not worth holding a grudge. It seems ironic, but it's true, and Igu is just a child of 400. Years, John Rowe should act his age instead of holding resentment. However, John Rowe won't have to wait long, as it turns out that Jaigu's next opponent is none other than Master Jaywan. The identity becomes clear when the seal of the Gorgona, that elegant tattoo, appears on his arm. Maybe Shan Ho will see his grievances resolved sooner than expected. On the battlefield, the two have a remarkable exchange of words about geopolitics. The military advisor states that Jaywan's ideals are crystal clear, but they make no sense in practice. In the front row had expressed doubts that our protagonist can defeat someone as decorated as Jago still. He feels something different, even though it's the first time he's seen our boy Shin. Comments that Jaywan's energy resembles Chong Ho's. If I had to guess, I would bet that Jaywan is Chong Ho's student. The ridiculous old man, like a monster, like our hero, could be one of his students. The difference becomes obvious when with the single movement, Jailon, the shipment already equal against the wall, effortlessly. Jaegumi. One remembers that he had no opponent in the quarterfinals. So Jaeon allowed him to face the Fortress Master directly. The reason for his participation in the tournament was to offer some advice to the Lord. Many before they came to Chaos as Masters of Fortress, offering hope to the people, and that never ended well for them, is thinking especially about that hope, which when not realized always ends up turning into an even greater despair. His purpose here is simple. He wants to crush this hope before it takes root. For 400 years he has never admitted defeat, and will not start now by standing up. Jaigu asks Jaeon if he really believes he was defeated. He reminds our protagonist, which mentioned a one-on-one battle, but never specified the type, then proposes a battle, of which the crowd becomes restless, wanting Miyun to recognize defeat. Shon. Ho. I already expected this. It's just a way to avoid admitting defeat directly. Guki points out that there is a problem in an intelligence competition. It is difficult to determine a clear winner. Meanwhile, Jalin wonders out loud what game this is, making it clear that he is willing to participate. Instantly, the environment around them changes little by little, until suddenly, they are in a completely different place. Now, our hero finds himself within one world of military strategy formation. One notification window appears, warning him that he is a beginner and offering a manual. He soon realizes that it is just a strategy game, sophisticated, inspired by one frontier game created by one of the 13 Sea Masters. It's a favorite pastime in that mighty land. Mion boasts that he's practically the best at chaos in this game, and offers Jaeon some time to learn the rules since he is new. But our hero thinks it's much simpler than everyone says. He's familiar with this scenario: 3 races, fighting, collecting resources and training troops in real time to destroy the opponent's buildings. He spent thousands of hours playing this exact game at Power PC Zone in Korea. It's almost as if these mayors were plagiarists, stealing technology from the Earth. As Jaelon is so eager, the clan leader suggests they play the scenario. Lost Garden, a battlefield designed for this world of strategy. Military in moments, Kaiwan represents the human race, while his opponent assumes the role of the undead. The master of the undead assumes that our protagonist is a complete novice. By choosing humans, widely considered the weakest race, the undead grow stronger over time. So the advantage should be his in the beginning and middle of the game. His plan is simple: build buildings quickly, lay foundations, and train workers for an all-out attack. But almost immediately he is taken by surprise. Human troops are already inside his base, decapitating the living dead, and even his artillery is being destroyed. He can't understand why Jaewon attacked so early, or how watchtowers appeared right inside their own camp. Moments later, the reason becomes clear. The hidden watchtowers are attacking his troops from within if he tries to destroy them. You will have to send your soldiers out where the Jaeon farmers will eliminate them, but if you don't, you won't be able to collect resources for its construction anyway. He decides to go ahead with his original plan. Unlike his opponent, our protagonist comes from modern Korea, and this technique is well known and frequently used. Even though it is considered a nuisance by many, the public soon realizes that it is already took full control of the game. It was arrogant of the wise clan leader to assume the fortress master was a novice. He tries to protest that it's an unwritten rule not to attack in the first 10 minutes, so that both sides can collect resources, but Jaum simply points out that there are no rules. About this, Mion insists that it is tradition, but our protagonist doesn't care. No rules, no restrictions. Soon, the clan leader is on the ground with his teeth sawn, wondering who is Jailon. There is no arguing with him. He is demolishing his opponent at his own game, using tactics that the strategist never imagined. There is no way to reach our hero. Now, eventually, the truth imposes itself on the wise leader of the clan. He cannot win. It took 400 years, but perhaps this is the moment he has been waiting for. He kneels and finally admits defeat before his master. After the fight, Seomgo is curious about the move that Zhao Wang used against Jalmyun coming down from the audience like Goku, he heads to see our boy. Exyeomgu points out that our hero always stated that he only made plays, but now he is also making cuts. He jokes that our hero must have been inspired by his own style, and adds that what Jailon just used the spiral cut was clearly based on his technique. Jaeon doesn't hide his discomfort when he hears about spiral cutting. It reminds him of Cheongo, that I hated names like Cheongo Lunge or Cheongo Cut, and now Cheongo is even changing. The name that everyone had agreed on was supposed to be Fatal Spiral, as suggested by Kamen. Cheongo is shocked, saying he thought Jaeon didn't care at all. With scam names, it turns out that our protagonist prefers that name, but enough of that. He is more curious about the skinny guy that Tiago brought. This man looks strong, stronger than most, and Jaewon wants to challenge him to a workout. Shimoguk finally believes in Jeong-gil. He realizes that our boy is not the polite type who follows protocol during introductions. Jeong-gil doesn't miss the chance to point out how this boy attacks the elderly, instead of respecting them. But now I love him. He just makes a face and says that around there the oldest are the strongest, so there's no reason to take it easy. Muguko observes how excited Jeongguo is in this conversation, responding quickly. He hadn't seen the old man so enthusiastic since the expedition to the Abyss 900 years ago. Furthermore, Zanggueo reminds Muguki of Mulak, the one who once gave hope to the people of Chaos. With everything, even this name carries the shadow of despair, the despair of the expedition into the Abyss. Mulak was the captain centuries ago. The question Muguk asks himself is whether Jaewon can really take Mulak's place, considering his performance, and the remarkable fact that he is only 60 years old. The potential is there, and it is possible that our boy will even surpass Mulak. However, Muguk does not perceive in Jaewon the moral rectitude that Mulak actually possessed. The two are complete opposites. While the Mulak was thoughtful and mature, our protagonist exudes a clear thirst for blood. Suddenly, Muguki's eyes widen when he sees the symbol of the lunar world. Realizing that he can now see from Jaewon's world, this can only mean one thing. He has already awakened Chong, and realizes that Muguk discovered that our hero is fully awake. Muguk suspects that Jaewon may even be of a higher level, to the third awakening. Before this goes any further, it's time for the quarterfinals, which will be broadcast live for everyone to watch. Upon hearing this, Xiango suggests they go back to the front row. But our protagonist is not interested. He heads straight to the arena. It's not his turn yet, but his impatience is at its peak. He watches the remaining contestants if he disregards Kamen and Union. The rest are really powerful, especially the one that Tianguo and Muguke had mentioned before. Ryoyu's subordinate steel, master the woman with the chained scythe. It also catches his attention, before he can think more about it, and retakes the stage, reminding the fortress master that it is not his turn yet. Jaewon's sudden appearance makes the crowd vibrate with enthusiasm. Picking up a two-horn microphone, he begins to announce his intentions. He's bored, and things are moving too slowly for his liking, so he announces a change of plans. Discarding even the one-on-one rule, one of the opponents is incredulous with the new master's proposal. From Fortaleza, we discovered that it is Jiego Kriong, the leader of the priestess clan. She immediately criticizes his attitude, questioning what right he thinks he has in this situation for her. I'm absurd how a group fight would work, how it would determine a winner. But our hero corrects her. She assumes he wants teams, but what he is proposing is that all 6 of them team up. Against him, the competitors are stunned before they can think much about it. He offers that whoever defeats him first will be able to claim the position of master of the fortress after a brief silence. The Colosseum explodes in applause. Things are going to get serious. The girl with the scythe is chained, finally speaks out, saying that he was waiting to hear Jailun's proposal, and that is genuinely excited about the boldness of the challenge. After making her announcement, Jaylen gives the microphone back to Jerry, fully aware of the importance of ensuring the audience's attention and trust. The people of Chaos understand how things work. There, the greater the trust, the deeper the connection, and that connection can be built over time, is a simple equation. But when time is short, there is another way to demonstrate overwhelming and undeniable strength. He's still thinking about it when the only truly free-spirited fighter, the girl from before, suddenly stands right in front of our protagonist, and shouts that she likes the way he thinks. His boldness impresses everyone. She even considers, openly, not killing the fortress master. The crowd is confused. It only becomes clear after she leaves that she just gave up. Before leaving, she whispers, something strange about not wanting to get in trouble with that thing that's coming. However, our protagonist doesn't really understand what she means. Out of nowhere, Yun Yang also speaks out and declares that he is also giving up, admitting that he cannot defeat the fortress master with his current strength. Technically, he hadn't lost until the quarterfinals, so he still retains his title as clan leader of the God of Lightning. The Kamen, to everyone's disappointment, also gave up and apologized with similar words, even praising our hero. This leaves only 3. remaining opponents already. I wanted to demonstrate unparalleled power right now to defeat these three. It won't be the dramatic display he imagined yet if all three attack at the same time. Maybe he can show something phenomenal enough to establish himself as irresistible. Jag and the Creon notes that things aren't exactly going as planned, but he decides to fight the remaining three. After that, the vice leader of the Priestess clan, seeing how confident he is, suggests that the clan leaders teach her a lesson. However, the clan leader politely interrupts her, remembering that they didn't come there to fight against a master from Fortaleza, ambitious and impulsive as possible. The king's warrior is also there, the one who the Lord King had specially requested. The two ladies of the clan ask him what he intends. His approach has been even more effective than she anticipated. She takes the moment to change the subject to the expedition to the abyss. Since she finished, no one had the motivation to revive her legacy, but she sincerely believes that Gyro is the right person to lead it. She openly supports him, declaring her unconditional support in front of the entire audience. Then she redirects the crowd's energy by reminding them that they didn't come just to see a new fortress master crowned. They came in search of something more. At that moment, she removes the veil that has always covered her face, revealing eyes. Huge and hypnotic. Instantly, the whole atmosphere changes. A strange illusion spreads. Bright butterflies begin to float over the already enchanted audience. People's eyes widen. Their gaze can penetrate emotions, hidden thoughts, and in the deepest righteousness of each. But our hero remains unlikely. He realizes the true nature of the magic of the gaze, her recognizing that she is distorting the crowd's perception with speeches of hope and desire. For a moment, he seriously considers interrupting the spell with a stab. But looking around, she realizes that it's too late. The crowd is completely under her control. Singing along with her at that moment, an unexpected voice cuts through the noise. It's the knight's sword. He has no sides, he has no prejudices. Just arrived from the south, not to fight, but just to observe. He makes it clear that he is not interested in watching people argue over a title. Apparently Myeongwan, what is it called, is considered equivalent to one of the 10 clan leaders. Dr. Calton Ravier walks down the corridor, opening the door to one of the offices, only to find a messenger bird waiting inside. And then the news arrives. A group of undead is on the move. And it's not just any group, a huge undead is leading the way, going straight to the Gorgona fortress. The message is from Island Craft, master of the Dryade fortress. This leaves Calton very shaken. Meanwhile, back at Arena, things change. The sky is slowly darkening. The master of the fortress, Jaewon, remains as cold and expressionless as ever, but even he knows something is wrong. The leader of the Priestess clan introduces herself and announces that there is no need for further fighting internal and that the tournament must be closed. She addresses the audience, saying that a proper expedition needs a captain everyone can trust. Chungho and Shimoguk, with all her experience, they realize her intentions. They know she is up to something. Using one of his high-level fair eye illusion techniques, Chungho is already on alert, wondering what her next cunning trick will be. Counterintuitively, she suggests the name Jair Huan, saying that it makes sense that someone with his strength and position would give him the group. The audience is completely convinced, enthralled by his dazzling performance. But it is only when the swordsman knight responds. As the true intention reveals itself, he reminds everyone that being captain doesn't mean being the strongest in the arena, or the smartest in the Colosseum. The swordsman says, this priestess could easily test whether all Jae-ruan is fit to lead. It is then that she announces her fair audit to everyone else. That sounds like a perfectly fair idea. Even the usually level-headed Jari is enveloped by the spell, emptying the stage and announcing that the priestess will test the mortality of the fortress master. Up high, she conjures huge magical arrows pointing directly at our protagonist. She turns to Jae-hwan and asks him directly if he is ready to be audited. It is at this moment that Chungho understands, slapping his forehead, knowing exactly how the clan master operates. Many people take this test to see if they are ready for the next step, but they are stressed, gritting her teeth, aware that she is setting a trap. She is about to manipulate our boy, trying to shake his confidence and make him seem inadequate. After all, who wants to follow a captain into the abyss? If he risks betraying his own squad for the greater good, one wrong answer, and Jae-won could lose everything. Chungho knows him well. He was never the graceful and noble type. But before the old woman can figure out how to stop this, the fortress master has already taken the bait. She even confirms verbally with him, ensuring that no one can claim that it was a setup. Then for a moment, everything remains completely silent. The pause lasts long enough for someone in the crowd to finally get angry, complaining about all the attention created. Suddenly, the scene changes. Now, our protagonist is in the middle of a storm, trapped on a ship in an ocean simulation. According to the clan leader, storms like these are normal in the oceanic region. Points to a floating rescue board. Sliding towards some people, someone is drowning in the waves, is a classic moral dilemma. Play it safe or risk it. Our boy reaches out and grabs one of the drowning people, pulling towards the board. But here's the turnaround. The rescue boat, it only has capacity for 10 people. If he brings one more on board, the whole boat will sink. Then the notification comes, like a warning straight out of a game. Taiwan must follow the rules and save the majority. Letting this drowning person go, or should you risk everyone's lives to have the chance to save this last person as well? There is no middle ground. He needs to decide to go quickly. The priestess turns to him and asks what he wants. What he would choose is clear. What will happen if he lets the man drown? Then people will complain a lot about our boy. He pulls the man on board. Everyone will criticize her bad judgment. But what this priestess doesn't realize is that she already doesn't follow the rules. He refuses to choose the first or second option, despite all her attempts to prove that he is not fit to be captain of the expedition. He chooses a third path. She is completely astonished, without waiting for him to find the secret option. The one that only appears if someone really thinks outside the box. Unfortunately for the clan leader, the bulletin board suddenly reveals this same secret option. It says they will each take turns taking control of the support board, with only 10 people at a time and one person in the water for a brief period, is a price everyone is willing to pay, so that no one becomes fish food. This is probably the best judgment anyone could hope for. And it doesn't take away our protagonist's humanity. She realizes that he found this solution, and that it's brilliant. Everything points to a victory for our hero. At least that's what it seems, she observes. However, he has not yet spoken out. The priestess clings to one last hope, wanting him to try some other clever trick, but the fortress master surprises her by focusing on the real problem, the sea itself. So what Jayden does, he declares that he will divide the sea, because that's what's swallowing your people. It works for the clan leader. That's right. Of course, in reality, it doesn't work. Zhangwei is the first to realize what he's about to do, understanding that our hero is about to completely deviate from the script, so it's time, and literally splits the sea in two. With MacBook clan leader's entire structure falls apart, Jayden's solution is so out of the box that he solves the dilemma directly, right after the people in the simulation are applauding the master of Fortaleza Beauty, applauding for the brilliant move he just made, while the notification panel glitches like a cheap pirated game, so it freezes completely, announcing that the audit is over. It is at this moment that the clan master breaks character for a moment. She looks like she's going to swear, unable to believe she's been defeated in her own game of illusions. Before things get worse, an alert cuts the moment. This is not training. Gorgon gave the order. Everything is being turned off. No more fights, games, or dramatic speeches. The Fortaleza is being isolated, and everyone, especially the crowd, we need to evacuate immediately. At first, people leave in a civilized manner, confused by the sudden order, but as soon as the news spreads, an undead attack is on its way. Not just any attack, but a massive and terrifying attack. Panic sets in. Reality imposes itself. The sky darkens not to create drama, but because an undead army is coming, and a Yan can only lament his fate, as he was the leader of the Lightning Clan, and the only survivor, and will now die in the Gorgona undead attack. As usual, Kang Huang and Yun Yang start arguing, exchanging insults, while nervousness takes over them. Actually, Kang Huang's legs tremble as much as Yun Yang's in the midst of the emergency. Chun Hoi, Shim, Guk, focus on more important issues. Is impressed with the fact that this kid, Jair Wan, less than 2 centuries old, is leading. Like some kind of caped crusader, is enough to embarrass some of the veterans, but John Ho wants to focus on the present. He admits he never thought he would see a situation like this again, not even after 900 years. Moguk understands deja vu perfectly. 6 of the 10 clan leaders are already here, and the situation mirrors that old premonition of death from their visit to the Palace of the Living Dead. Look what they saw there. Something they still don't talk about may be about to happen again. There's an old rule that old-timers have noticed. When there is a medium threat, smaller, undead, follow it when a giant appears. The mids also appear, but this time the Catastrophe King, the Supreme Chief, appeared in Gorgon. The King of Souls was one of the main reasons by which fortresses were built as the story unfolds. The true horror of the King of Souls, and the monstrous abomination that he is, are revealed by following an undead beast, a mega dead-level threat. The situation is more than desperate amidst the chaos. They see the creature with huge red eyes, the terrifying Magritte, who walks backwards, ready to sow destruction on Gorgon. The scene turns into a waking nightmare. Death spreads everywhere, devouring the place alive. Civilians scatter in panic, but most are not fast enough to escape the horror that soul Gorgon in the midst of the chaos. The priestess remains completely frozen, her body refusing to move. She watches, helpless as monstrous undead tear people apart by tearing off limbs, snuffing out lives without mercy. All your confidence is ripped away. Everything around you is sucked away. through a darkness that continues to spread, there is a moment that she cannot forget, a monstrous and twisted undead. It grabs an old man right in front of you. This is not cinematic drama, it is suffocating and disgusting cold. Although it seems impossible, your tremor is real, your wide eyes stretch even more. But now they are useless. Your scream comes too late. Just noise. Powerless to change anything, she begs reality to suddenly give her a break. Knight Myeonggwan's sword cuts through the fight like a blade, and he throws himself between the monster and the clan leader. But even he can't change what's happening. He can't save the old man. He can't even save himself. He just postpones death for a few seconds. The priestess screams again, watching the undead's claw almost tear his face. Then her world crumbles in slow motion. She realizes that nothing else matters. Every action seems meaningless. Each and every one is a joke, and she knows it. This realization destroys her more than the monsters. Watching Myeonggwan's fate, she understands that free will means nothing if the universe is just mocking you. Hope is a farce, drowned by the same result, death, the moment she gives in to the nightmare. Giving up, because even fighting feels like a lie to herself. A blast of blinding light pierces the monster, gigantic, cutting you in half. The shock is sudden and intense. There is the leader of the Lightning Clan, and an Ion completely fed up with the chaos. He tries to break the priestess out of the trance, but she can't. The girl is still stuck in her own shock, frozen and useless. His tone is anything but gentle. The nightmare situation continues to worsen, and his wide-eyed existential paralysis only makes things worse. Yeonyong turns his attention to the rhythm of the battle. Kang Gi-hwan, K-Mim and Yeonyong himself work like clockwork, fighting for their lives. The priestess, rigid as a statue, she watches them confused. She can't understand why they are trying so hard. She thinks hope is long gone, buried under death and ruin. Seeing them fight in the midst of madness only leaves her even more perplexed. We see a flash of Ion hitting the ground, driving away the monsters, while K-Mim's blade cuts anyone who gets too close. Kangwon is also in the fight, reinforcing the defenses for this traumatized Sidatiza. Seems like pure courage, or maybe recklessness, but to them, it's just survival and willpower and an alert Ion, even in chaos. You know the truth, they're hanging on by a thread, they're too much monsters, and they only get worse when everything seems lost. A new focus emerges. The Gorgona tattoo on our protagonist lights up. A warning, a sign he's paving the way straight to the living dead. Magritte, no distractions, no side struggles. Just him, against the biggest nightmare in the room. The creature is not just a monster, it is a death sentence. 3 cold eyes, sharp teeth, cruel thorns and claws that promise agony. Instantaneous, but Jae-won doesn't hesitate. He eliminates smaller monsters, as if they were nothing. Your movements are precise, fast, and relentless. One moment he's thrusting, the next he's cutting, but he maintains his composure, never giving in. Completely to fury, he knows that this enemy is different. The monster bites everything that is nearby, turning anyone who isn't fast enough into a meat workshop. Instantaneous. So our hero keeps his distance, watching, calculating, waiting for the perfect opening. This is no longer just a fight, it is a test of survival and strategy. Jae-hwan, always willing to break the rules. You know your best option is to retreat and attack from a distance. That's the plan, to create space. Attack from afar, survive. But Magritte is not irrational. He has his own ranged attack and doesn't hesitate. Whatever he's about to unleash is anything but pretty. Our hero barely manages to dodge, narrowly escaping as the destruction explodes behind him. The monster prepares for another round, charging the attack again. So when he makes the move used instead of dodging, he prepares himself ready to block the attack. Almost as if using test the depths of hell, the battlefield becomes silent. As Magritte charges his main mouth for a devastating blow, cut to Shang laughed, fighting his own monsters. In another part of the battlefield, he is far from panicking like the priestess. But your hands shake not from exhaustion but from memories. The last time something like this happened, the result was a graveyard, and he remembers each defeat in detail. Excruciating, even with all his experience, he feels the impossible nature of winning this fight. The word hope echoes in his mind, bringing back the memory of Emo Gretches, who the former master of the fortress. He remembers Emo saying that hope isn't a flowery ideal, it's a necessity. Sometimes people need hope so bright that it fades. Even the deepest darkness. With all this talk about hope, we see Jae-won in action. Our protagonist is already in the middle of the battle, charging straight at the beast as it prepares to attack. Without hesitation, he knows exactly where the explosion is forming, and engraves his blade straight into its core. He has finished the tests, and now intends to end the nightmare before he even finishes his attack. Moments later, a blinding flash cuts across the battlefield, forcing everyone nearby to protect their eyes. Comes exactly from the point where Won was in combat with Magritte. Chungo's gaze follows the light, and what he sees next almost freezes him in place. Our boy is there, smiling like crazy. Right after dealing a heavy blow to the creature, the monster looks even more grotesque. Now, somehow, more disgusting than before, as if the scam had removed a layer beyond the Shung account. Already unable to understand what Jayden is, the guy simply doesn't fit into any logic. But Magritte isn't finished yet. It attacks its disgusting tongue by whipping out rib-like spines, wrapping themselves around him, trying to end it all right there. The jaws close like a bear trap. Yet our protagonist doesn't panic. He frees himself from the creature's claws with a well-aimed blow, without giving him a single second to savor his prey. So get the sparkle in your eyes, your blade, ready to inflict the monster some real pain. Jungo recognizes what is coming and has déjà vu. DJ Juan dividing the sea earlier is the same movement. The signature blow. He is charging an attack ready to go. Shout in half in the meantime. Shimogak, watching everything unfold, finally understands. He turns to Chungyo and says what everyone is thinking. Jair Juan is the most reckless person he has ever seen. Chungyo just smiles. Reckless for sure, but that's exactly what makes him who he is. He would protect this madness with everything he has if he suddenly had to. Everyone else also gets excited. Shin Mogu, who is ready to take action, even the leader of the priestess clan. Traumatized and frozen as one, the statue begins to animate. Maybe that was what Jair Juan was missing, hope in person. Even the wise leader of the clan decides to show his face, which irritates Chunghil, considering the moment he was in. When everything was falling apart, no matter how much Chungo and others tried to get back on their feet, it's not the time for optimism. The three big undead are still on the loose, even though the squad is giving them a hard time. And Hon tries to tease Kang Huan by joking about how impressive it is to throw lightning compared to Kang's fire. But the joke doesn't work. He just wants a moment of tranquility to boast about having defeated abominations. But Huan is too exhausted to care. He is still fighting his way through the monsters and throwing fire, like the king of fire that he is. But it's hard to feel invincible when the nightmares keep appearing. Teeth sample as fatigue continues to creep in, as the three great undead are standing there is nothing to celebrate. Suddenly, a random girl appears out of nowhere and throws a rock at one of the monsters Juan is facing. She has courage, but no sense. The huge undead fixes her eyes, blood red in her, a horror riddle, and attacks, but golden chains arrest him just in time. Professor Calton Raviere making his entrance. And he's not alone. He brought Prime Minister Jurgen Cheever and the rest of the Kang gang. Juan finally allows himself to relax and even smiles. The arrival of reinforcements gives him the necessary boost. He is not alone. Xian Muguk is already causing havoc. All the Ngorgon are out there, showing what it means to have true heart. We return to our hero. He is not just fighting, he is rewriting the rules. He punches a hole straight through the Magritte and finishes him with one blow. Propelled by gravity, its blade shines, illuminating the entire Gorgon fortress, as if announcing exactly who just dealt the final blow 10 days later. The smoke has dissipated, the damage is being counted, and there is an uproar in the streets. Chaos is rife with news of 3 of the great undead, including the dreaded inverted Magritte, were defeated by the Gorgon heroes. The entire population is vibrant with energy. The scene changes to Mitchell, who is talking one-on-one with a recruit, or perhaps a friend analyzing what happened in Chaos. Especially in Gorgon, it conveys the impression that things are getting better, but challenges the other to think deeper. Mitchell asks, what has really changed? Since the epic battle 10 days ago, the recruit doesn't immediately understand. Mitchell points out that he does. The monsters have been defeated, but the consequences are still difficult. The infrastructure is in chaos, and life is not easy. He's not just talking about the clan leader's base being there, or the resources flooding the Gorgon market. It's subtle, but behind all the headlines of victory and political changes, ordinary people are suffering. The hero's victory narrative is not as simple as it seems. The real change is in how people act. There is a little more optimism, as if hope has been renewed. People seem alive, the opposite of what you usually see in Chaos. But Mitchell doesn't believe it. He quickly denies this idea. The boy is so focused on the future that he probably didn't see the trail of devastation. Mitchell refers to that savage moment, the Black Sea of undead, cut by a single sword, but that spectacle cost real lives. Many of them, Mitchell doesn't understand either, completely what happened. But it's putting the pieces together. Everyone was there. People's eyes were full of hope that night for real. They cling to the half-truth that Gorgon is better now than in his opinion. It's kind of silly. What really bothers him is that people really think you can live normal lives in chaos. Now suddenly, a thunderous sound. As an explosion breaks, the calm, the apprentice shrinks, looking around as if they were caught in a bombing. Mitch is as calm as ever, with his big horn hanging on his shoulder. He doesn't blink. He says, it's nothing new that's been happening. 10 days in a row, the youngest boy with his eyes wide open speculates that this must be because the 10 clans transferred their headquarters there. He is even more scared when he realizes that this could mean war is coming, or has it already started. Mitchell does not confirm or deny anything. The feeling is of war. Meanwhile, in the training camp, we see what Joan has been doing. He is not resting, and the swordsman has been training the clan leaders, hard ensuring that when the shipment arrives, everyone is ready. A sudden sound of breaking glass hits the scene like a bomb, and Lyndon Hung's face freezes in pure disbelief. The man looks like he just discovered that the sky is purple. He literally has to ask his subordinates to repeat themselves, word for word, because you can't believe what you just heard. Apparently, some guys just defeated an undead mega. There are only 3 of these monsters in all the chaos. Killing one is not something you do casually. Supposedly, it is only possible for someone with a rank above lieutenant general. So, no, he doesn't believe it. He immediately orders his men to investigate further and find out what is really going on. Still intrigued, he is convinced that this is a big mistake or some kind of misinformation. What he still doesn't know is that in 4 days he will be faced with the complete annihilation of the northern branch of the Forbidden Seal clan. Not only defeated, but decimated. Meanwhile, in Gulf chaos reigns otherwise. All the clan leaders are gathered together, looking like they just got out of a bar fight. Scratches, bruises, and all that mess. And there is Jayden, venting all his fury on them. Yan Yong, who usually solves things with jokes, he is on the verge of tears. He mumbles something, and our protagonist explodes, scolding. The master of the fortress wants to go around the room and give a reality check. In each of them, June, quickly, but that's it. Kang Huang strong but moves like a rock. Cool Myun thinks too much about everything and reacts too late. Jago Kryonga is agile and strong, but his resistance is terrible. Cayman, however, stands out as the best among them, solid fundamentals, and no glaring weaknesses. But that's it. He's just the king of mediocrity, with no decisive difference to our boy. It's obvious. These people have been sitting on easy mode for too long, living off the hook. Given to them instead of actually winning over John Hill, who usually takes everything as a joke, he actually loves this opinion. He stays close to Shimaguku, completely agreeing. But Jairuan also doesn't spare him by calling John Hill too weak, considering that these people lived for 1,000 years or more. It hurts real. John is furious. But he knows that Jaiwan is not wrong. His memories go back 900 years, when the 10 clan leaders were monsters. Level 7 adapters, at least no joke. Leading the Celestial Dragon clan, the most powerful yet were level 9 giants. But even with all those big shots, the one who made them look like amateurs was the perfect Mulak. That guy was on another level. Even with all that power, the Abyss still destroyed them. Because the Abyss doesn't care who you are. It was made to destroy the best. Our hero is not at all impressed with what just happened. He simply embarrasses the current group for being so devastated, just for eliminating the only branch of Heaven's forbidden clan. If that is their state now, how will they face the real HQ in Montecore? Forget the Abyss, they would be destroyed, just by knocking on the front door. The Fortress Master's patience runs out. He decides right then and there, it's Hell Week. Heavy special training, no days off, no excuses. That's where Jer Guimum enters the scene, trying to bring a little reason to the room. He realizes that perhaps the Fortress Master is out of touch with how the adaptation works. So, he explains everything in a very simple way for everyone. Everyone here is an adapter, but the real journey starts after that. The transition from non-adapter to the first stage takes about 10 years, from the first to the second, 20 years. The third stage, 40, and the difficulty only increases. Like an infinite ladder, living human beings cannot even dream of reaching the fourth stage. Most would die before even getting there. Meanwhile, Juan has that mischievous gleam in his eye, as if he is plotting something daring, and the strategist begins to sense what is happening. He suspects our boy is trying to get them all to wake up. If that's the case, he has more news. That's not how awakening works. You can't just train for it, as if you were earning a gym badge. It happens out of nowhere, in a sudden and brutal way. Our protagonist is really stunned for a moment, as if he wasn't expecting that. But there is still hope he can hold on to. There is a consistent pattern for those who awaken, and he knows this firsthand. You need to abandon your world, not metaphorically, literally. That's where Chongo enters the scene, explaining everything as a prophet. There are 3 stages to become a smart one. But for now, only the first matters. You destroy the world. Where did the world of adaptation to the life you've lived so far come from? This home needs to fall apart. Not everyone understands it right away. It's very abstract. So Jago Kryong explains, abandon your status, your systems, all the nonsense you've been conditioned to believe. Forget everything you thought was true about power. And progress in a young for the first time finds his words surprisingly insightful. She wonders how a guy like him became clan leader. He is not offended. He is already relaxing again. The man is an overloaded adapter. His potential is almost limited. He has a natural talent for everything. When Young puts it that way, he sounds like a next-level prodigy, especially because he can grow 100 times faster than a regular adapter. This is no small feat. Overloaded adapters are rare. Even the 12 lords are part of this group. King Wan rolls his eyes half of this. He claims it's just good marketing. He points out that everyone here is also an adapter. Overwhelmed. Except here's the surprise. Cayman is not like everyone. He is different without any special talent. About the capo. This is strange considering the .com, how skilled he is compared to the other clan leaders. The point is that Cayman doesn't care about any of that. Are ready to throw away all your talent, your world, even your sense of self. Just for power, the one thing he's determined to keep. It is his burning hatred for those 12 lords. This obsession fuels him, and the Gokrion intervenes and tries to make him come to his senses, reminding the leader of the South Sea clan that he wants to annihilate everything. Disappear, disappear, erase. She mentions the Great Disappearance, which is yet another hornet's nest that our boy hasn't even heard of yet. By now, you're already used to this kind of surprise. Related to the story, raises an eyebrow, curious to know what comes next. She explains that, about 700 years ago, cracks began to appear throughout the earth. At the time when everyone was at war with the cultivators, the cracks were not just phenomena, they were more like a rebel terrorist group, with a clear message: reject the current world, wake up and go to the forgotten land. The monarchs responded by agreeing to exterminate them. The philosophy preached by these rebel adapters combines perfectly with what the master of Fortaleza is suggesting. Now it is. Juan wants the team to leave the past behind and seek the real. Awaken this same message back then. The Finds managed to gather thousands of adapters to their cause. The most incredible thing is that no one knows where these people ended up. It's as if they disappeared from reality, disappeared as if they had never existed. Goku Ryan is not sharing this by chance. She is narrating it, because some of those who returned, they were his friends. A few managed to return, claiming to have awakened, at least in the first stage, but they were never the same, whatever they saw. Wherever they went, everything fundamentally changed them, and this mystery remains unsolved. They came back deeply traumatized. Our protagonist isn't in it for the drama. He really wants to know what happened with those who called themselves smart, because from his perspective, there haven't been many around lately. That's when Diago Creon reveals the real bomb. Everyone who returned ended up committing suicide. They simply couldn't deal with the situation. Some suffered complete mental breakdowns, others descended into madness, and some lost their memory completely. No matter what form it took, amnesia, insanity, unbearable knowledge, it all ended in the same place. Identity collapse. The existential nightmare territory. Everyone ended up claiming in some way that they no longer knew who they were. Our boy understands. Now he draws a clear line. He is not part of the Star Movement or any cult, but he won't pretend this new path is safe or easy. It's as dangerous as it gets, and he has already created it. He is right to be cautious. That is why he will not force anyone. He just wants volunteers, blind non-loyalists, people willing to face whatever it is up front. Then there is only one more question left to be answered. What will he do with those who don't volunteer? Jair Wan has never been the type to abandon anyone. He won't discard them. He will help them grow in his own way too. Even though Diago Creonga still thinks this is another trap for disaster, he sincerely wants everyone to become stronger, adapt, and evolve beyond everything they've ever known. She slaps her forehead, listening to his speech about evolution. Again, the master of the fortress still acts as if he didn't care about the full context. He basically ignored Jai Guillaume's explanation that constant training won't magically make him increase in adaptation levels in a week, but it seems that our protagonist has a plan B. Then everyone follows him to a strange building that none of them have ever seen. Mitchell is already standing there like a proud mechanic, letting Jae-won know that everything is ready. Yong-yong is the first to notice. The entire building is constructed from the horns of elite-level artisanal horned beasts. The master of the fortress makes sure no one is left in the dark. He wants each of them to understand exactly what kind of hell are they in for when their notification panels light up. A message flashes: wish to become tower walkers in the Tower of Nightmares. John Rio stares at the screen with wide eyes and open mouth. He knows exactly what this means. So yeah, it's just a matter of time before the tower welcomes our squad with open arms. They are already feeling the vibe, a brilliant move in progress. And John Rio is especially impressed, wondering silently how a human managed to accomplish something that only the Maris are known for doing. It doesn't take long for the group to start pointing. What kind of place is this? Kamim immediately notices there is nothing above the second floor. That's exactly why our boy brought them here. Diglumium finds the whole situation amusing, and in a way, an honor. He is already planning to break the barriers. whatever the cost. Until June, it seems more serious than usual. Everyone is here because they want to level up. Enough admiration, according to the master of the fortress. If you want to stand still and admire, you can do this whenever you want. Now it's time to act. Training takes place in a time-dilated environment where everything moves 100 times slower than in the outside world. 7 days outside are equivalent to 700 days here. Almost 2 years of uninterrupted training, but there is one, however. The squad needs to be aware of the corruption of the soul. The denser the time, the greater the fatigue when they undergo brutal routines. The risk of corruption can exceed 80%. If this happens, is immediate disconnection. The loudmouth comments on how Jayden really cares about them, and Gukryona just stares at him, as if he were a big shot. Our study protagonist's irritated face. Now comes the division. He already knows that some of them are not willing to go through the awakening process, then divides them into 2 groups with different training paths after splitting. It becomes clear that Cayman is the only one brave enough to submit to hell. The others, they choose the alternative adapter route. With that decided, it's fight time. You can't go 5 minutes without annoying someone by showing off your speed. When dodging all of Goku Young's blows, she cannot stand his arrogant attitude, and feels as if he is belittling her. Using his abilities from the Lightning God clan, it is at this moment that Ruan can go and breaks through, going into full fury mode, throwing flames everywhere and shouting that destruction is always better than speed. In your mind, smashing faces is much more satisfying than running away from a fight. The leader of the clan, a wise man, is probably the most arrogant of the group. He makes the usual comments with descendants claiming that everyone is weak and didn't do no real progress. Meanwhile, Shimogoku just watches silently, as 3 of the 4 clan leaders face off as if it were a rematch. But before we descend into chaos, we go back to previous moments, showing how the squad planned everything. K-Mim would always choose the awakening process, but Gukryona doesn't understand how others will use this tower to climb level. When everyone is already at maximum level as adapters, clan leaders, they are far ahead of non-adapters, and leveling up is not exactly easy, according to her. They would need a divine level skill book, or some divine revelation, to make minimal progress naturally. Yun Yang chimes in with his always dubious idea of simply stealing the skill books. It's hard to tell if he's joking, gives of his dark past, but no one is surprised. Our hero, however, he has a different plan. He doesn't want shortcuts. Gukryon observes his calm and indecipherable face, and deduces that maybe he wants to play sensei, but that's not what he wants them to teach each other. It sounds corny, but Team Muggle of all people thinks it's a great idea. Not just smart, but the kind of thing that makes you wonder why no one thought of this before. The problem is that these clan leaders, they are all arrogant, presumptuous people. They would never have come up with something so cooperative because of, even now learn the skills. Each other is a chore because they just can't stop arguing about who is the strongest. But even with all this dysfunction, Shimaguki have a feeling these idiots are going to somehow miraculously get better. At least that's what he hopes. Meanwhile, his thoughts wander to Cayman upstairs. If anyone is really suffering now, it's him. Cut to the sweat-soaked swordsman brandishing his blade. He has completely lost track of how many blows he has already given. It could be 10,000, 100,000, maybe 1,000,000. The arms move by, pure muscle memory, waging war against itself. Even now the fortress master treats him like a novice, remembering to breathe between blows, scolding him for losing his rhythm, saying he will never reach his true strength unless he corrects this. Cayman continues to question the process. This is how you wake up. This is what it takes. But now I anchor this type of thought quickly, without room for doubt. They talk about why Cayman's frustration is just being trapped. The only sound beyond training is the rustling of his blade. He doesn't miss the other adapters. He doesn't even compare to them. He just thinks he's not that talented, and he's not cut out for this kind of transformation. But our hero doesn't believe any of that. He draws a line between Cayman and the super-powerful adapter, brats, with egos the size of continents. The swordsman is not an arrogant clan leader. He has a strong heart, and that matters more. Consistency, purpose, and willpower always trump raw talent. Awakening is not for the gifted, it is for those who bleed for it. When the Cayman is about to doubt himself, the master of the fortress gives him a vote of confidence, makes it clear that he trusts him, and asks for trust in return. That spark is all that is needed. The Cayman doesn't just attack, he transforms, now striking with real power. If she didn't know before, she would know now. Zhuao Gil made his decision a long time ago. He ended up with the inhumane psychopaths of the stars. That doesn't stop Shiola from trying. She's determined to convince him that he is completely mistaken, that the cracks are really fighting for humanity. They are the only ones who still care. But the mayor doesn't believe him. Everything is broken. Crack drags people to the bottom of the well. They use humans as fuel for a perverse plan. all while acting like saviors as if anyone in their right mind would believe that. In his eyes, crack no longer matters. The time when they were a real force has passed. Now they just cling to the glory of a cult. Even the lords considered them a threat. But after the great disappearance, that impression dissipated. Seola laughs. At that, a soft laugh. But cutting hypocrite is not, she did not forget. Chunguo not only supported the movement that led to the great disappearance, how he helped lead him 700 years later, and now he wants everyone to forget. This criticism hits harder than the old one. Let it be seen that Jungo tries to maintain her composure, but it is clear that she is distorting history to suit his own will. He remembers things differently, and points out the intentional gaps and misrepresentations, even though he can't face them. Staring at the ground hardly conveys confidence. At least there's a grain of truth in what she's saying. Seola doesn't hold back either. He saw it all happen. The great disappearance happened right before his eyes, and he didn't intervene. And whatever happened back then, Chiola wouldn't be who he is today if he hadn't played his role. The most disturbing thing is that there are still real people on crack clinging to their grotesque techniques. As if they were the absolute truth out there, they try to awaken, tearing each other apart, brandishing swords, stabbing, dying, and repeating everything in an insane ritual. Round after round, the violence continues. The past is not just a lingering shadow, it still infiltrates the present. The survivors continue to brandish their swords, lost in the madness. As she pours a glass of wine, vivid flashes of these scenes come to light. People killing cult members in a bloody pit. Worse is that this brutality is the goal. Only a few survive after massacring their comrades to numb their emotions. They remain numb, swinging swords a billion times, without feeling this numbness at all. This inner emptiness is part of the process. Awakening requires tearing away what makes you human, just to see what remains. The old man knows this better than anyone. He hasn't faced it in a while. Avoiding a truth he buried deep in his sudden escape. Sayola mentions how all this only leads to the first stage of awakening, the dismantling. But the moment she says that something inside him breaks, he gets mad, is not the right way, or the right word. The sword is drawn before he realizes it. A reflex taking over is ironic. Coming from someone who hasn't even fully awakened, he pulls her into his white world, the same space glimpsed when he treated the little boy, a blank canvas still buried. That's the irony. The man who pursued awakening as a religion, she is too afraid of creating her own world, afraid of losing what little soul she has left. On the other hand, not afraid. The chaos she conjured on your screen is deeply disturbing. Then he realizes that times have changed. Sayola is now the second with the crack captain, but she is not there to show off. She attacks, hurling bloody sickle chains, each drop telling a story. This is more than a matter of position, the way she moves the brute force behind her punches. She may have reached the third stage of awakening, so she releases her power, the blood in her chains, pulls him straight into his unique world. A nightmare landscape. He is frozen, wide-eyed, as if your soul has suddenly stopped. The ground is covered in corpses from cult violence, bodies torn apart like in a slaughterhouse. Then the penny drops. This is the aftermath of the great disappearance. This sea of blood, the stench of slaughter, this is your unique world. She gives her all the dead. Don't pretend to live. And the chaos never changes, even if neither of them can say it out loud. The truth remains. Chaos has no hope. Sayola still makes his offer, wanting the rift back, but the old master won't go back. He feels the change. It just triggered. Faint but undeniable change is coming, and he believes it. His expression betrays him. This new master of the fortress, this unexpected hope, is dragging even the most stubborn veteran to faith. It is remarkable that neither the disaster of 900 years ago, nor the massacre of 700 years ago, have made him come to his senses. Sayola's anger overflows. Her voice becomes bitter. She wants him to fail again. Hope's bloody defeat will cling to him like a curse, praying he abandons his new allies just as he abandoned the Rift anyway. The Rift is watching. They're not done with him yet in the meantime. Back to Nightmare Tower, Kamen is immersed in his Stage 1 awakening arc. The question he confronts, a doppelganger made of his own doubts. Stage 2. Understanding the world you just questioned. Stage 3. Erasing everything, leaving it blank. He is meditating when Jayden breaks open sword, shouting at him for standing still. Our boy demands that he stop pretending and fight. As if his life were at risk, Kamen feels weak. He knows he can't win. Our protagonist, however, is already on another level. He is not here to spoil anyone. He is tired of excuses. The confrontation is quick and intense, existential, as if Jayden was not just attacking Kamen's body, but tearing his core apart, playing for the consequences. He almost got it. Kamen goes into a spiral, questioning whether it all represented real growth, ready to give up. But our protagonist is not finished. He tells Kamen to stop leaving the chains of the world. When something is trapped inside the Kamen, if it breaks, it frees itself from the weight of the world. breaking his shackles. His awakening reaches stage 3. This time he is ready. With his eyes shining, Cayman raises his sword, surrounded by sheets of water and furious waves. Without hesitation, the two collide. Jaewon's lunar world invades reality, colliding with Cayman's waves of water, in a display that borders on the mythical. After the brutal confrontation, the rain falls as if the sky itself is exhausted. Cayman falls to his knees, just his hand on the sword or standing up. Jayden approaches calmly, congratulating him on having reached the 3rd phase. Cayman, still stunned, wonders if he really got stronger. Our hero smiles knowingly, and the scene moves away. Revealing the devastation left behind, Keimano's realization hits home. He is far from Jaewon's level. Not yet. Not so. The 3rd stage of our boy's awakening is light years ahead of the other. Strong for the internal fortress, the expedition resumes. But this time, everyone is present except Jayden. Someone finally exposes the system for what it is: unstable, flawed, rife with nepotism. The so-called Treaty of 4 Fortresses, to avoid the abyss, ready to be buried. The problem is a reunion of the 3 fortresses, thanks to Linden Rong's taking of Manticore for now. The noisy rooster represents Garuda Dryade, brings insulating active craft, is in charge of managing Gorgon. The clan leader adaptation team is present. The Prime Minister probably regrets leaving. Our protagonist is absent to train because the emergency meeting was called shortly after, and the master of the Garuda Fortress wasted no time in making typical demands. King Wan and Yongyong are fed up with the delegates after ignoring everything. These people now want to lead the expedition to the abyss. Don't even think about it in the meantime. Shiva tries to direct the discussion back to the original topic, the hidden clans, but the real problem is the technically missing smart heroes. The Prime Minister can take charge, but in matters like this, the Masters, de Fortaleza, make the decisions already in the eyes of Gal Noise. Still just a 60-year-old boy, the 8th stage adapter says so openly. Put our boy in command of the expedition to the abyss. For him, it's like throwing the car keys to a small child. And Enyon won't tolerate it the moment Gal Ruodong criticizes him and the nail explodes. Lightning crackles, clenched fists, increasing attention in the room. He warns the monarch, Golden, to choose your words carefully. Honestly, your time just leveled up through sheer audacity. But true to his style. And the Unhao didn't think straight. He expected the delegates to remain calm. While the Garuda Fortress Master was threatened, there was no way. At this point, the issue and beyond politics was personal pride. The adaptation team had had enough, and with the arrival of Kang Wan, it was clear that they would not sit idly by. Everyone in the room felt it. They wouldn't allow Gal Roydam, or the almighty guy, dictated the leadership of the expedition. The decision was made. Our protagonist would be the captain of the expedition. Period. No votes, no debate. Before anyone could blink, Jaeyeon's faithful pet dog was already at the training camp, exchanging punches with none other than the Garuda boss. It was too late to wonder what Yoon was thinking.